Good evening. Tonight is the last of 3 nights that we have set aside to hear from PTAs, municipalities, civic organizations, and interested individuals on the interim superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2023 capital budget and the FY 2023 through 2028 capital improvements program, along with Supplement A, interim superintendent's recommendation for the Gaithersburg Cluster Elementary School Number 8 boundary study, and Supplement B, interim superintendent's recommendation for the Bethesda, Somerset, and Westbrook Elementary Schools boundary study. As with our previously held meetings, this hearing is being conducted in person, but with limited audience seating. Testimonies will be conducted in person, but we will also air audio and video testimony submissions. Tonight's hearing will be broadcast live on television and MCPS Media. We will conduct another CIP work session during the board business meeting tomorrow, November the 9th, if alternatives are passed during that work session. The board will hold a hearing on November the 16th. If no alternatives are passed, there will be no need to hold a hearing on November the 16th. As always, board members are looking forward to hearing and giving thoughtful consideration to your testimony. The board is scheduled to take final action on these matters at its meeting on November the 18th. The order of speakers is listed on the agenda that is available on the board's website. Board members will have the opportunity to hear from the community via in-person, audio, or video presentations. Only the audio and video testimonies received will be aired during this meeting. Any written testimonies presented for tonight's hearing have been made available to the public and for board members' review on board docs. For those of us here in person, please remember that masks are required to be worn in this building. So we ask that you remain properly masked for the duration of the meeting. Properly worn masks must be worn over both your nose and mouth. At this time, I'm going to ask my board members to introduce themselves, starting with Dr. Daca.
Good evening, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Ms. Silvestri.
Good evening.
Ms. Evans.
Good evening, everyone.
Ms. Harris.
Good evening, everyone.
Ms. O'Looney.
Good evening, everyone.
And Ms. Mandrowski, who's on Zoom.
Yes, hi. Good evening, everyone.
I'm also joined by our interim superintendent, Dr. Monifa McKnight, and many MCPS staff. Thank you. Now let us begin with our speakers who are here with us in person. When your name is called, please approach the podium and push the flat button below the microphone to turn it on and begin speaking. Please keep your mask on, but speak clearly and directly into the microphone. So first up is Judd Ashman. Mr. Ashman, Gaithersburg Mayor. All right, well, we'll come back and maybe he'll be here later. Next up is Carrie Cook.
Hi, I'm Carrie Cook. I'm a mom to 2 daughters for whom I've been fighting for a new Poolesville High School ever since I joined the PTA in Poolesville, Maryland. I'm also the president of the Poolesville Town Commissioners, and I've been fighting for my community for the same reason. So my high schooler spent her freshman year of high school, basically in her room, quarantining. And she's spending her sophomore year mainly in portables currently. And that's likely what she'll be doing for most of her high school experience. But that's okay. We're not complaining because the Poolesville High School rebuild is soon happening, and our up-county community is getting renovations to a school that we've been fighting for some time, so we couldn't be more thrilled about that. What we are not thrilled about, however, is the fact that our gym, the gym that is affectionately called the new gym, is a 45-year-old gym, and is very similar in size to most middle school gyms in the county. And unfortunately, it is not slated still to be a part of this rebuild. So my colleagues are here tonight and will share more specific areas in which we are coming up short when it comes to equity of services. But I will talk with you a little bit about our sports program. Our athletic director tells us that even though we have less space and less staffing and less resources, we're still able to participate in all of the sports that most all of the high schools in our county participate in. So we do a lot with a little. And as you well know, sports play a major part in the life of a child, in the life of a teenager, especially in this time coming out of the pandemic, when we have so many mental health worries. There was even an incident of violence at Montgomery Blair just today. So here's our Poolesville High School gym. Bare minimum. The basketball court itself takes up the whole room, and as you can see, there's very little in terms of risers on either side. Slide. Thank you. And looking at some renovated high school gyms, this is the Damascus High School gym, one with the bumblebees there. And slide. And this is the Clarksburg Coyotes. Also quite a difference, as you can see. Recently renovated as well. And then slide, please. And here is the Churchill Bulldogs. Also quite a difference in scope. And these are all renovated schools within the last 12 years, I believe. All of these schools were also needing a rebuild, and we are thrilled for them that we got them. We're just asking for the same. Just for fun, slide please. This is from my own alma mater, Walt Whitman. This is the old dome that was built in the 60s. It was a massive gym under there, and it came down with the renovation of Walt Whitman High School in 1992. Of course, the whole school was rebuilt in 1992, and then, of course, Walt Whitman is also having another facelift this year. And slide. So here's Poolesville High School gym again, and I'll just leave with you that we're simply just asking for you to acknowledge that, yes, we may have a smaller population, but we should not be treated inequitably. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Dr. McKnight. Thank you to the whole board.
Thank you. At this time, I want to make an announcement that we do have a Spanish interpreter here if you are in need of assistance.
Queremos avisarles que tenemos un intérprete para los que desean dar su testimonio en español.
Okay, I'm also going to circle back to Judd Ashman, who's on video. Please play the video.
Good evening, Board of Ed members and MCPS staff. My name is Judd Ashman, Mayor of the City of Gaithersburg, and here presenting a very brief testimony on behalf of the city regarding the interim superintendent's recommended boundary for Gaithersburg Elementary School number 8. The City of Gaithersburg strongly supports the recommended boundary. It appears to create a good balance of diversity and capacity utilization among elementary and middle schools. This boundary maximizes the potential for students in the immediate surrounding neighborhoods to attend elementary school number 8 and the closest middle school, Forest Oak. It maximizes walkers, and ultimately, most of the cluster schools, except for Strawberry Knoll, are projected after the grandfather period to be between 90% and 100% capacity, creating an overall balance in the utilization of all of the elementary schools. So we are grateful to MCPS staff and to the board members for expanding the scope of this boundary study to include the middle schools. It just so happens the middle school boundary drawn 20 years ago remains a sore point for many of our residents. From their perspective, this boundary recommendation would serve to make it right. So board members, we ask for your support for the recommended boundary, and we thank you all for moving forward with adding and fast tracking the new school and much needed capacity to the Gaithersburg cluster. We thank you for your partnership and thank you for all you do for our students and school communities.
Okay, next up is Jermaine Tyler. Jermaine Tyler. Okay, Caroline Wang.
Hello. Good evening, President Wolf and the Board of Education, as well as Dr. McKnight and MCPS staff. My name is Carolyn Wang, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Wootton High School. I'm currently a senior at Wootton, have played a sport at Wootton, and I've walked down the hallways at Wootton for the past 4 years, so I'm no stranger to the place. Tonight, I'm voicing the concerns of not only myself, but my friends, parents, schoolmates, teammates, teachers, and administration. We urge the Board of Education to finally renovate Wootton in the Capital Improvements Program. To understand where we are coming from, you have to get a glimpse into Wootton's extensive renovation history. It has been 21 years since the last partial renovation was made to Wootton, and neither the weight room nor the locker room have been touched since 1970, so it's been 50 years. Renovations scheduled back in 2013 were delayed 2 years in the 2013-2018 CIP plan, and further delayed in the approved 2015-2020 CIP. Currently, there's no clear plan for Wootton to be renovated until September of 2027. So it has been 7 years. Wootton has desperately needed a renovation for the past 7 years, yet we continue to be excluded from this most recent infrastructure plan. For a long time, I was blind to the severity of the problem. I simply thought of Wootton as, well, old and shabby. The showers don't work in the locker rooms. The ventilation is so old that whenever nutrition does their omelet lab, the hallways will smell like eggs for the next few hours. I had not truly experienced the extent of the issues at Wootton until recently I got the chance to participate in my school's study circles, and I sat next to a girl in a wheelchair. She brought up issues that had never occurred to me before, like how hard it was for her to get over the unnecessary small bump on the floor getting into the bathrooms. She explained that she would need the larger stalls for her wheelchair as well, but the bathrooms would always be so crammed with people that it left her unable to use it. I looked more into the issue. Our greatest concern at Wootton is that we are severely out of ADA compliance. Our building's cramped structure is especially dangerous during emergency evacuations, especially for students with disabilities. There's no ramp for fire safety drills near the special needs department. The sidewalk ends abruptly near the back buildings, and students have to walk onto the nearby grass, leaving no accessible pathway. This presents many challenges to our special needs program, which has to compromise student safety again and again because the structural design of Wootton is not up to date. With so many new additions and funding allocated to the Capital Improvements Program, it should not be this difficult to include Wootton in the conversation. We are very privileged to receive the funding, resources, and support available to us already, and we understand that we are asking for a lot in a time where there's already little to go around. I appreciate the dedication of everyone here today towards the well-being of our student community, but the problems at Wootton cannot be ignored for any longer.
Thank you. We
Thank
have
you.
your testimony. Okay, at this time, I understand some of our students are on their way, so we're going to move down to Norm Gordon.
Okay, it was already on. All right, Dr. McKnight, President Wolf, Vice President Silvestri, and distinguished board members, my name is Norm Gordon. I'm the 2021 to 2022 PTSA President of all the proud Wolverines at Watkins Mill High School, which are not here, but that's all right. Speaking to you today on behalf of the entire Watkins Mill cluster. My daughter is a junior at Watkins Mill. First and foremost, I would like to thank Superintendent McKnight for including the funding for the South Lake and Neelsville major capital projects in the FY 2023 to 2028 capital improvements program and maintaining their current completion dates such that the long-awaited new facilities can welcome students for the fall semester of 2023 and 2024 respectively. I would be remiss not to remind those who have served on the board for several years and mention to those who have not that whereas the dire need for a new facility at Neelsville was identified as far back as 2015, design plans were scrapped in favor of other projects at that time. Not until 2018 did the board reconsider and the process was picked up again. Had the original 2015 plan stayed in place, cramped hallways, lack of elevators between floors, grossly insufficient bathroom space, a front entrance configuration with no good security solutions, and windowless rooms would be relics of the past. But sadly, they are not. These are current realities. And they'll continue to be current realities for the next 3 years. Unfortunately, this year's entering sixth graders will never know Neelsville to be anything but a substandard facility. We are way behind, folks. Thus, it is imperative that at the very least, the students who start at Neelsville next fall, that is 2022, get to experience an adequate learning space for at least 1 year, namely their 8th grade year. In sum, on behalf of the Watkins Mill Cluster, I implore you to make sure that the Neelsville new facility is done no later than August 2024. Any later would be a travesty, as these folks are here support of. We know that this is still pending County Council approval, and don't worry, the Neelsville community will be there this winter to make sure they keep funding for Neelsville on track at the County Council hearings. As for my home school, Watkins Mill, my fellow Wolverines and I are happy to accommodate the new early childhood program scheduled to start this winter. We would just ask that as this program was originally intended for an elementary school, not a high school, you would provide additional building service worker staffing to accommodate the proper sanitation of portable sinks and other maintenance needs for the 100 4-year-olds that will be entering our high school on a daily basis. Needless to say, some additional staffing for maintenance would seem to be required. And that's it. Finishing early. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to go back and call Alex Nugent.
Good evening, Superintendent McKnight and members of the board. My name is Alex Nguyen, and I'm a senior at Springbrook High School, as well as the SGA president and the founder of MoCo Connects, a student-led group aimed to empower students in the NEC. Firstly, I want to thank you all, especially Board President Wolf, who has long been an outstanding advocate for East County students. With the White Oak Science Gateway taking place, it's reassuring to see a variety of capital projects for our elementary and middle schools, as well as long-needed additions to Paintbranch and Blake. But today, I want to draw your attention to Springbrook, the last of the 3 NEC high schools. Despite having a capacity of over 2,100 students, we ended up falling short of 400 when our NEC counterparts had to deal with severe overcrowding. With the choice for middle schoolers to rank what high schools they can attend in the NEC, it's no secret that Springbrook, neglected and overlooked, has been the last on their list when its infrastructure has decayed since its modernization 27 years ago. Thus, we at Springbrook have requested the following. 1, locker room ventilation and quality. Our student athletes regularly use these rooms for sports practices, drenching them with an amalgam of sweat, urine, and other bodily fluids, and a place of little ventilation. As a result, there's no place for these stenches to go, causing the odor from bacteria, mildew, and mold to invade upstairs. This has not been the first issue with our locker rooms. In 2017, one of our PTSA coordinators actually brought up an issue of raw sewage leaking from the ceilings. We're alarmed at the situation, and we're asking for an investigation into this matter, as well as a renovation of our outdated team and locker rooms. 2, upgrades to auditorium lighting. As Springbrook is expected to dramatically grow in enrollment, we're asking for an upgrade to our auditorium lighting for it to become a testing center. Existing spaces available cannot accommodate our increasing number of students who are registered for AP and IB exams, and having an additional testing center would help us support our students. And 3, lack of technology in our classrooms. In our school basement, otherwise known as the pit, there are still vacant classrooms with nothing but an archaic projector and a screen. In an age of Chromebooks and smartboards, it's disappointing that our school doesn't meet the standards of 21st century technology, which is why we're asking for these spaces to be furnished with the proper equipment. Again, I want to reiterate the importance of our student safety in a time of uncertainty and confusion. We're asking for handrails to be installed on our gym bleachers so our students can be safe at our sports games. We're asking for increased lighting on the stadium and upper fields so our working class parents don't have to choose between taking their children miles away to unsupervised sites and working day and night shifts to put food on the table. And lastly, we're asking for an artificial turf field so we can quit spending thousands of dollars on field maintenance and move towards a more equitable consortium. Safety, support, basic student necessities. These are the concerns of an entire community. So we hope that you consider Springbrook's needs in the CIP. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask, is Jermaine Tyler here yet? Okay, so next we'll go to Kathy Stocker.
I think this is already on, right? Yeah. Dear Board President Wolf, Vice President Silvestri, Board of Education members, and Dr. McKnight, thank you for the opportunity to testify at this Facilities and Boundaries hearing. My name is Kathy Stocker, and along with Beth Van Gelder, I serve as one of the cluster coordinators for the BCC cluster. I welcome this opportunity. Thank you. First, though, on behalf of the cluster, I would like to extend our sincere condolences over the recent loss of longtime board member Pat O'Neill. We could not proceed with our testimony without first publicly recognizing her tireless and selfless service to the students and families of District 3. She was always a strong voice for District 3, but just as importantly, she was a strong ear and really listened and responded to the concerns of her constituents. We will miss her. In the interest of time, I'm going to focus my opportunity here to talk about why this recommendation is not the best option for advancing the factors dictated by policy FAA. But I want to just make one point before I do that. If there had not already been a Somerset-Westbrook boundary study in play pre-2019, I wonder if we would have just done a Westbrook BE study at the time, because Somerset was already starting to decline in enrollment. Right now, Somerset's enrollment is 429 kids. The boundary study report projects that with no boundary change, Somerset is projected to have 535 students. That would be a 25% jump in 1 year, over 100 students. We know these numbers are out of date and do not account for the disproportionate attrition from our cluster that we have witnessed since the beginning of the pandemic. In this post-COVID, post-quarantine world, there's no longer utilization issue at Somerset, and it really remains to be seen whether and when Somerset numbers would ever rebound to their 2017 levels. But let's talk about the recommendation. The outcome of this 3-school boundary study was a recommendation to adopt option 1. Option 1 clearly does not best advance the 4 characteristics dictated by BOE policy FAA for educational facility planning. The policy prioritizes stability of school assignment over time as one of 4 factors to be considered in determining school boundaries. One particular and striking concern with option 1 is the inclusion of the East Bethesda neighborhood. For almost 30 years, East Bethesda community was split between 4 different elementary schools. We barely got one cohort of kids through K through 5th before the disruption of the quarantine. And now this community is facing fracture and instability of school assignment again. Even more significantly, we know we have a BCC WJ joint elementary school study coming down the road. And looking at the potential sites, it's hard to imagine that East Bethesda, or at least part of East Bethesda, won't be somewhat impacted. Why do we want to subject East Bethesda kids to a move now when there's a reasonable chance some of them will have to move again? Option 1 also creates instability of school assignment and disrupts the community of Chevy Chase Village. Because option 1 proposes to move this section, delineated as section 3 in the boundary report, we would have kids in a very small neighborhood attending a total of 4 different elementary schools. Schools and PTAs work so hard to create, build, and maintain community. Imagine what we do to a community if we divide kids and families, all of whom basically live within walking distance of each other, among 4 different elementary schools. Admittedly, every boundary study is disruptive, but option 4 is a more measured surgical option that provides more stability and does the least harm to community. One real cluster-wide challenge about which we have testified many times is the rapid growth and dynamism in downtown Bethesda. Many times I've stood here before you and urged the board to consider approaches that add some slack in our schools for more variable and less predictable fluctuations that occur in downtown Bethesda. The current and future growth in downtown Bethesda demands a built-in pressure valve to accommodate these sometimes wild fluctuations in enrollment at BE. Westbrook has the capacity to absorb some of this growth in downtown Bethesda. It does not help us as much to move East Bethesda or sections of Chevy Chase Village. Most of those properties are single-family properties. The real action and flux is in downtown Bethesda. That is where we are seeing bigger, more substantial growth. While option 1 appears to offer a small advantage in terms of facility utilization at BE, the small advantage is not that compelling or even that durable if you consider that enrollment dropped at BE, but we saw more attrition last year out of East Bethesda than we did out of downtown Bethesda. The impact was disproportionate. So option 1 will make less of an impact on facility utilization. If option 1 is implemented based on current projections, BE is still over capacity in a few years. It makes more sense for the future utilization considerations to move the denser and more dynamic parts of Bethesda into the schools that can offer more slack and absorb the fluctuations in enrollment. This is the one that's really concerning for me, this factor. Option 4 provides more socioeconomic parity between the 3 schools. Option 1 maintains the current problematic difference in the socioeconomic profiles in these 3 schools. Option 4 increases the farms rate at Westbrook and decreases the farms rate at both Somerset and BE more substantially than option 1 does. Under option 4, the projected Westbrook farms rate increases from 1.2% to 9.8%, while yielding projected rates of 10.3% and 8.5% at BE and Somerset, respectively. This option is the one that projects the best balance and distribution across the schools. So we'll have 9.8, 10.3, 8.5. They're not equal, but they're within a range, much closer than they are now. This is ideal. Under the proposed option 1, though, the farms rate at BE is projected to be double that of the farms rate at Westbrook, 13% versus 6.6%. If we must disrupt and uproot families, why would we not choose the option that more successfully balances the socioeconomic profiles at each school? Westbrook, which currently has close to 0% farms rate, sees and welcomes this new boundary implementation as the perfect opportunity to diversify the socioeconomic profile of its student body. Option 4 maintains the balance of demographic profiles at all 3 schools, while better balancing the farms percentages between the 3 schools. It is the option that best advances the factor of demographic characteristics as described by BOE policy, FAA for educational facility planning. When these 3 schools were thrown together into a boundary study, they did really good work to solicit community feedback. The leadership of these schools worked really well together. They looked at the staff-created options, and they really wanted to do what was best for their communities, but they also really thought about what the impact was cluster-wide. These schools were not interested in pitting neighborhood against neighborhood. They were advocating for kids and communities, but they did not believe this was a zero-sum game. They worked to find an option they could all live with. I was so proud of how the leadership of these schools worked together to listen to each other and find consensus. The community feedback showed a clear preference for option 4. None of the schools, none of them, ranked option 1 as a first, a second, or a third choice. In my many years as a PTA leader and volunteer, I've heard so many complaints that MCPS does not really value community feedback, and in general, I've pushed back. I've reassured parents and guardians that MCPS is a big system, that sometimes it moves slowly, but that advocacy matters and it is heard. In this case, I am sad to say that I can offer no defense. I have no response to the perception that this entire process of community meetings and surveys was simply performative. In both the first and second surveys, option 4 is the top preferred option. Even when disaggregated by individual school, for the first survey, option 4 was the preferred choice indicated by BE, by Somerset, and by other community members, and was ranked as the second preferred choice by Westbrook. I know this is a difficult time for everyone. I know that MCPS staff and the board is overworked and overwhelmed and no doubt exhausted. It has been hard for everyone to constantly pivot and adjust to constant uncertainty due to the pandemic. We really do know how hard everyone is working and how dedicated and well-intentioned everyone is. This boundary study was a good idea in 2019. If we were starting this study today, it would be a different study. In 2019, moving kids would have been disruptive. In 2021, it will feel traumatic. There's a good argument to be made to hit the pause button and consider a new study in light of the dramatic change in enrollment in our cluster. If we are going to move forward, option 1, to put it simply, is just the wrong call right now. The reason that none of the public input ranked option 1 as a preference is because we know our communities and we know our schools and we carefully consider the same factors that you do. We know option 4 is the better choice because it advances the 4 characteristics outlined by policy FAA for educational facility planning. Despite robust and active engagement during a quarantine and a pandemic, this community did not feel heard. And our cherished board member is not here to hear us and speak for us now. So we need the board to please hear us, and we trust you to trust us. We too want what is best, not just for our own individual kids, but for all the kids in the cluster. We thank you so much, really, for your service to our kids and their families during this very difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Carrie Primozic.
We have 10 minutes, correct? Yes. Okay, and the other cluster coordinator is with me to do some translating and such for our parents who are in Spanish that might be watching. So go ahead.
Gracias a la Junta de Educación y a la doctora McKnight por escuchar lo que tenemos que decir acerca del CIP de las escuelas de Gaithersburg. Tenemos el honor de servir al grupo de Gaithersburg, un grupo lleno de diversidad, padres solidarios y educadores comprometidos.
Thank you to the Board of Ed and Dr. McKnight for hearing our Gaithersburg cluster CIP improvements for our great schools. We have the honor of serving the Gaithersburg cluster, a cluster full of diversity, caring parents, and committed educators. Our CIP needs are as followed. The Americans with Disability Act still needs to be addressed at Laytonsville Elementary School with a ramp, and Strawberry Knoll Elementary School. The front door to the school does not have automated access, meaning anyone in a wheelchair or other physical challenges are not able to hit the button to open the door, and so we're hoping that'll get into action. The building modifications we need for Gaithersburg High School. There's been a staffing increase in the Cosmopolitan program for Gaithersburg High School students. This requires another lab to support the program. The opening of the classroom shelves that are currently in the second and third floor for GHS need to be open to support the Cosmopolitan program. This needs to be addressed as our students in this program simply need space to engage in the program. Gaithersburg Middle School, Forest Oak, and Strawberry Knoll all have HVAC concerns. That's all in the written testimony. I'm not going to elaborate. I would like to talk about Gaithersburg Elementary School's gymnasium needs a new lighting system. The lights are extremely old and they really need to be replaced. That has been regularly requested and really needs attention. We hope that happens. Summit Hall Elementary School needs a relocatable classroom. It's needed for the instrumental music class as part of the Arts Initiative program. The school does not have any other additional space. They run the lunch and recess time over a 4-hour period each day, giving no access to the APR room. during that time. They have requested in the past the need to have this relocatable classroom for the Arts Initiative program, and they need it so the students will have the space to be a part of this program. Gaithersburg High School needs security cameras in the main parking lot as well as in the athletic field areas beyond the main parking lot, the basketball courts, the practice fields, and the softball and baseball fields. Proper security cameras for a school this large is highly priority for safety of our concerns. This request has been made regularly, so we keep asking. We're just not sure where it goes, so we're hoping it's here in the CIP and it can happen this time. And now regarding the Gaithersburg Cluster Elementary School number 8 boundary study, I'm going to turn over to my partner cluster coordinator to start in Spanish for us, for our parents watching that speak Spanish.
Gracias. Tenemos comentarios mínimos de nuestros padres y de los grupos de PTA y estamos preocupados por esto. Las reuniones comenzaron en marzo de 2020 y continuaron en la primavera de 2021. Las recomendaciones se publicó el 15 de octubre de 2021, un documento de 45 páginas hace aproximadamente 3 semanas. Después de reunirnos con nuestro grupo de escuelas la semana pasada y enviar correos electrónicos solicitando comentarios, todavía no tenemos nada importante que compartir. Escuchamos a un vecindario que está muy preocupado por el cambio que se ha recomendado. Nuestro punto es, ¿han sido todos escuchados? ¿Esto está bien? ¿Cómo pueden imaginarse, como coordinadoras del grupo de escuelas, estamos preocupadas? ¿Ha realmente trabajado a conectarse MCPS con nuestra comunidad y escuchando a los padres, a todos los que están involucrados? Nadie ha dicho nada. Esto es alarmante y una señal que como estamos comunicando no está trabajando. La pieza de participación de la comunidad no es única solo en nuestro grupo. Lo que funciona para un grupo de escuela no necesariamente puede funcionar para los otros grupos. La falta de saber puede deberse a las vías de comunicaciones que se están utilizando. Las escuelas usan muchas formas diferentes de comunicarse con los padres. Algunas usan correos electrónicos, otras usan Class Dojo y otras usan la aplicación de Remind.
Thank you, Irma. I'm going to continue in English. We have minimal feedback from our parents and PTAs, and we are concerned about it. The meeting started in March of 2020 and went through this past spring of 2021. The recommendation was released October 15th, 2021, a 45-page document. This is about 3 weeks ago. After meeting with our cluster just last week and sending out emails just last week asking for feedback, we still have nothing big to share with you. We did hear from one neighborhood who is very concerned about their recommended change. This is it. This is all we have heard. Is this okay? As you can imagine, as cluster coordinators, we are concerned. Did MCPS really reach our community and hear from our parents, the stakeholders? No one has said anything. This is alarming, and a sign not enough work has been done to say we actually reached community. The community engagement piece is not a one-size-fits-all for all clusters. What works for one cluster may not for the next. A lack of awareness may be the routes of communication were not used effectively. Schools use many different ways to reach parents. In our cluster, some is email, some use Class Dojo, and some use the Remind app. We are coming out of a time of our lives that has been challenging for sure. So maybe this was the problem, but is it okay to move forward anyway? We can't delay the new school from opening, that's for sure. We know when boundary changes are made, it can be hard and not everyone will be happy. We are asking for the Board of Ed and MCPS to reach our parents. Please use your resources. We have only had 3 weeks to review a very involved document. If the recommendation is approved, we believe parents would be shocked to know their kids are going to new schools, as there are changes to the new elementary school and then changes among the existing elementary school and the middle schools per the recommendation. Our final top 3 questions are, were parents really reached in the boundary study process? How accessible is the information to parents, especially our non-English speaking parents? What will MCPS and the Board of Ed do to reach our Gaithersburg parents? Irma?
Nuestra comunidad de Gaithersburg es importante. Necesitamos ser alcanzados, considerados y valorados. Somos un grupo silencioso, pero merecemos saber de lo que está pasando. Gracias.
Our Gaithersburg community counts. We need to be reached. We need to be considered and valued. We are a quiet cluster, and we deserve to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Sarah Cortez.
Members of the board, on behalf of the 10,000 students and their families in the Walter Johnson cluster, I am pleased to be testifying before you today to support the interim superintendent's proposed CIP and recommend that you fully fund the Woodward High School project for phases 1 and 2. We would like to thank the MCPS Division of Capital Planning for their hard work and community engagement that has occurred in the planning and design of the new Woodward High School. For many years, the Walter Johnson Cluster has been an active partner with MCPS on this project, the project of relieving severe overcrowding in the Walter Johnson and other clusters. And from the discussion group in 2015 to the Phase 2 design discussions currently taking place, we are excited and grateful that the hard work by so many, and in particular, we'd like to commend Mr. Adams and his team for being such great and listening partners. And we continue to believe that Woodward must do 3 things. It must relieve the overcrowding at Walter Johnson High School. It must allow the cluster community to remain together in either Walter Johnson or Woodward while welcoming an expanded community from the other clusters, and be a facility with physical amenities and course offerings comparable to all other high schools in MCPS and serve the entire county. We understand that the world of construction is in a challenging moment, but we assure you that we want to urge you to assure that the appropriate investment in order to keep the construction of first the holding facility for Northwood and then the ultimate Woodward High School stays on track. We recognize that staying on schedule is crucial to meeting not just our needs for the overcrowding, but also the needs of the rest of the county that you've been hearing about all this evening. Now, as you are well aware, the Phase 2 design planning for Woodward High School is active, and we recently wrote you regarding our assessment of the options before MCPS as they stood at that time, which I had meant to attach for the record my testimony, but I actually forgot to, so I'll be sending that supplemental email. We will continue to strive to provide constructive, positive, and proactive feedback and partnership for options that are optimal for our students and the surrounding community. We recognize that several neighboring communities next to the facility will be affected by the construction of Woodward. We urge MCPS to continue to work with communities on issues such as drainage, retaining walls, and noise levels. We also support the preservation of existing trees and vegetation, including limiting the use of the Edson property to the extent feasible without compromising the integrity of Woodward facilities or the cost efficiency of the project. The thousands of families that will engage with Woodward over the year include these neighboring communities, and reasonable concern should be considered and mitigated, so long as it is not a detriment to the community as a whole. And when I speak of that community, I mean the immediate community that will be surrounding Woodward for sure, but also this larger community of MCPS, because we know that the more that Woodward costs because of design workarounds, the less money is going to get spent on Neelsville, on Poolesville, on all the other projects that this county so desperately needs to continue work with. As mentioned in our previous communication with you, we support what MCPS is now referring to as option 1A as the most complete, most cost-efficient, and most ideal design for the project. Now, regarding the discussions of the Edson property specifically, based on our participation of MCPS's public Phase 2 work sessions, we understand that every design option will require some use of this land, between 1/8 and 2/3 of an acre. So given the necessity of at least a portion of the property for the successful completion of Woodward, regardless of design, we ask that MCPS and the board begin the process of requesting transfer of this property back to the MCPS from the county. We also support discussions of how any loss of trees and vegetation can be mitigated as part of a sustainable investment in the future of Woodward and the students who will call it home for many years to come. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, well, it's a pleasure to be back in person. It is so sad to see that empty chair. On behalf of my fellow cluster coordinators, we continue to feel Pat O'Neill's loss as an advocate, as a colleague, and as a mentor. I'm sure you do as well. Thank you for the opportunity to present the views of the Walter Johnson Cluster, and have a good evening.
Next is David Griffith.
President Wolf, members of the board, and Dr. McKnight, my name is David Griffith. I am the president of the Poolesville High School PTSA. And tonight, I'm representing the Poolesville cluster, composed of Monocacy Elementary, Poolesville Elementary, John Poole Middle School, and Poolesville High School. Thank you for this opportunity to advocate for our students. We'll talk about the CIP. We have several issues and concerns we'd like to raise with you. First, while we're encouraged that the Poolesville High School construction project is recommended for continued funding, we continue to have questions about the project and timeline, as well as serious and ongoing concerns for a modernization plan that does not make any updates to our competition gym or athletic facilities. On page 1-12 of the CIP, it is noted that the total estimated cost of our major capital project is $71 million, which appears unchanged from previous CIPs. It does not account for the increased construction costs currently being experienced by MCPS, and certainly is not sufficient for the needs at hand about the exclusions I just mentioned. Moreover, in several places, the CIP lists our project completion date as August 2024. Yet the projected enrollment and space availability chart on page 4-70 notes that the project may be completed in 2 phases, with phase 1 completed in the 24-25 school year and phase 2 completed in the 25-26 school year. This is a notable change from last year's CIP, which had a similar notation in the same chart, but said the major capital project would be completed in the 24-25 school year. We'd appreciate more information about what actually is involved with these 2 phases and the meaning of these chart notations as it relates to the completion of our project. What is the completion date, and what does the word completion mean? As you may know, at our October PTSA meeting, MCPS staff told us, our families, that the second phase of our project would be completed in December 2024. So is it August, December, or 25-26? Let me also reiterate the Poolesville community's vehement objections to the project's exclusion of any improvements to our smallest and oldest high school gym in the county. To add insult to injury, none of our other athletic facilities are being improved as part of the modernization. The first and only high school in recent history not to have their athletic facilities improved during a modernization project. In the spirit of equity and fairness, we implore the board to amend the project plans and to provide the necessary funds to modernize our gym and athletic facilities and bring our high school up to par with every other high school in the county. Switching gears. In light of MCPS's ongoing outdoor efforts during the pandemic and beyond, we would like to request installation of permanent outdoor infrastructure, including pavilions, in all 4 of our Green School certified outdoor facilities. These structures would meet growing community interest for the use of outdoor spaces and benefit academic and mental health recovery for our entire school community. Our cluster, as you know, is located in the Agricultural Reserve, which is recognized for its environmental stewardship. And our high school is home to the Global Ecology Program. This is a great opportunity at minimal cost to support the Green Schools initiative in our cluster. 3 of our 4 cluster schools have limited HVAC capabilities, as noted in MCPS's Diamond rating system. Monocacy, Poolesville Elementary, and Poolesville High School all rate 2 diamonds out of 4. There have been delays in HVAC replacements in our community, and our community is concerned because we are currently in the midst of an airborne pandemic where adequate ventilation and filtration are critical in the layered COVID-19 mitigation strategies. As mentioned in our October cluster meeting with you, we are continuing to urge MCPS to provide data verifying that these systems are meeting ASHRAE and CDC standards for ventilation, filtration, humidity, and temperature controls during the pandemic. We are further requesting, per state guidance, that MCPS continuously monitor CO2 levels for at least one entire school day in all fully occupied classrooms and other occupied spaces. It is our understanding that funding has been allocated for the HVAC replacement in advocacy, and we want to emphasize the need for this project to be prioritized and not be delayed any further. And we also request commensurate funding for the replacement of the HVAC at John Poole Middle School that serves the main office, health suite, counseling corridor, because it is not functioning at full capacity. Other CIP requests include the roof at John Poole Middle School, which is 22 years old and has been leaking for several years above the girls' and boys' locker rooms, and concerned about mold in those confined spaces. We are also requesting for the third time the replacement or repair of the intercom PA system at Poolesville Elementary School because it's outdated and announcements cannot be heard throughout the entire school. We understand the challenges we faced as far as a pandemic and uncertain budgetary constraints. However, when millions of dollars are being spent for a new high school, well, not new high school, we hope that it'll be equitable and relevant and scalable for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Minnie Varugis. I apologize if I mispronounce. Please play the video.
My name is Minnie Varghese. I'm the MCC-PTA Clarksburg Cluster Coordinator. My testimony covers requests for Clarksburg Elementary, Halliwell's Middle School, and Clarksburg High School. My testimony is followed by Clarksburg Elementary's message. First, we're all aware that the CIP is heavily underfunded. Please reinstate the recordation tax. Second, MCPS enrollment projections are baffling. Construction of new housing is on the rise, families from DC are moving to our community, and yet MCPS projects a decrease to Halliwell's and Wilson Wims. Please fix your projections. Third, thank you for passing the budget to allow Clarksburg Elementary number 9 to be built and opened by August 2023, alleviating the impending 300% overcapacity of Clarksburg Elementary, and for agreeing to place a portable bathroom on the school's field in 2022. But what are the plans for immediate relief to Clarksburg Elementary? Clarksburg Elementary is presently at 250% overcapacity with limited bathroom space and no sidewalk for parents to bring children to school. Several nearby elementary schools, Wilson Wims, Monocacy, and Gibbs are all under capacity. We're requesting liberal COSAs be allowed to allow transfers with the possibility of a bus. An accelerated boundary study with the results released to parents before the COSA window closes on April 1, 2022. This will allow parents to make COSA decisions based on their new school boundaries. Fourth, Halliwell's Middle School, Room 119, is used for FACS, Family and Consumer Sciences, but in order to teach the full curriculum, updates are needed to the electrical panel and outlets. This is a popular elective. Fifth, Clarksburg High School, despite the redistricting, is still overcrowded. We do not expect it to change anytime soon, and the portables are old. Specifically, portable 1 through 4 are 24 years old. The average life cycle of a portable is around 20 years. Please replace them. Next is the testimony from Clarksburg Elementary School. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Wolf, and I'm the Clarksburg Elementary PTA president. On behalf of our students, family, and teachers, I'm asking for an immediate solution to the overcrowding at Clarksburg Elementary School for the fall of 2022 while we wait for number 9 to be built and open in fall of 2023. Our current school building was built for 311 students and is currently serving 775 students. That's a 250% overutilization. We have 15 portables and are expecting a portable bathroom to arrive over winter break. For that, we are very grateful. We've been assured that building Clarksburg number 9 is at the top of the CIP's priority list and is set to break ground February of 2022 and open fall of 2023. However, as you know, MCPS just released next year's proposed enrollment numbers for Clarksburg Elementary. The current building is expected to serve 875 students. That's nearing a 300% overutilization. On October 28th, our PTA board and administration sat down with MCPS staff and asked what the plan was to accommodate those numbers for the coming school year. We were told more portables. But when we asked, is there actually space anywhere on school property for the portables, the director of facilities management admitted that placing additional portables on the property would get tricky. Why? Because there's no more room. We desperately need a thoughtful and well-planned immediate solution now for the crisis that's coming this fall. Parents, students, and teachers deserve more than a mid-August thrown together Hail Mary of a plan. Therefore, we'd like to propose that the boundary study for Clarksburg number 9 be completed in an expedited timeline so that the recommendations for new boundaries would be made public to parents as soon as April of 2022, but no later than June of 2022. This should allow willing Clarksburg Elementary parents to request a change of school assignment in the spring or summer of 2022 so that they can enroll their child in the new designated school a year early. Alleviating some of the overcrowding will benefit all MCPS students in the Clarksburg cluster. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cora Snump, and I am a second grader at Clarksburg Elementary School. Today I would like to tell you why we need a new elementary school built at Cabin Ranch. We have caring teachers and staff at Clarksburg who care about the students and make sure we are safe. But there are too many kids for our small school. I eat lunch at 1:50. If we get more kids, I won't eat lunch till dismissal time. Also, there are so many kids, the bathrooms are really dirty. It's hard for our staff to keep up. Lastly, the school is wasting money on so many portables and extra teachers that we should just build a new school. In conclusion, I am asking the board to help the Clarksburg community get a new school at Cabin Ranch. Thank you. Good night.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to check and see if Mr. Tyler has arrived. Okay, so we'll move to board questions, and I'm going to start with the first one because I'm sure this is one we probably all have or at least want to hear about. And that I'd like to ask Mr. Adams to address the concerns raised around community engagement by the Gaithersburg cluster.
Sure, thank you, President Wolf. So I will ask Ms. Karamias to also chime in as her division was responsible for this. But one thing I would say is that we have had continual and ongoing updates through ConnectEds, through reaching out to individual schools, through we have partners behind me. Mr. Everett Davis was involved in reaching out to different entities that are supporting this community. So one of the things I would say, though, however, is that we did have limited feedback along the way. And that is something that I think we probably went out to each school, each community more in this boundary study than any other boundary study in our MCPS history. And along the way, we still had very limited feedback along the way. Ms. Karamias and her team also went out to individual schools this past spring, to individual PTAs, to individual schools, to try to, again, provide some feedback, garner some feedback, or provide information, garner feedback. And I would say absolutely I agree with the community that this one was disappointing in terms of how much feedback we did get. And I think as a school district, as a Department of Facilities Management, it is something that we're going to have to look at in future studies and future work to think very differently about how we engage. Engaging through PTAs did not work. Engaging through the cluster model did not work. So I think when we take a step back and revisit this particular one, models that we have implemented in the past that were successful were not successful in this one. Certainly, I would also ask Mr. Davis again to chime in, because I know he had reached out through different avenues and did receive more along the way, more feedback along the way. But again, these models had limited success. I mean, I think for us to bring in 40 people at a meeting, which we did one time, was a huge success, but that was obviously few and far between. But I don't know if, Adrian, you want to chime in terms of numbers and the type of touch points and outreach that occurred.
So it was, we did do this process differently. I think part of the testimony was that we do have to look a little differently for different clusters, that it isn't always cookie cutter. And we agree, and that's why we did do it differently. So we had initially a total of 7 meetings, and we did structure them differently. Our first meeting, when we presented the options. We had a presentation of the options, but then we held an additional meeting, both in English and Spanish, where it was just questions and answers. So anyone can come to the meeting, either ask the questions in Spanish or in English, or we could present, and we did present the information in both Spanish and in English. In order to reach out to tell communities about those meetings, we worked with the principal, the PTAs, the cluster coordinators. We did send out an email of the schedule of all of the meetings. And then we reached out again prior to every meeting with a Connect Ed so that communities, parents, guardians would be aware of those meetings. When we held the meetings, the first presentation meeting, the option meeting, we then put it on our website. We videotaped it, put it on our website, let the communities know that it was there. It then turned into a YouTube meeting, a YouTube presentation that could then be presented also in Spanish. So we tried to incorporate all the meetings in both English and in Spanish as well. We went through that through our first process of options meetings, did the same exact thing for our second round of options, because there was a second round of options. And then we, if you recall, we came to the board because this boundary study was delayed because of COVID. We came back to the board in March, and we released the report in January, came back to the board in March and presented the report. And at that time, the board members, if they recall, asked us to go back out to the communities. So we actually went out to the communities, worked with the PTAs, and went to every PTA meeting to the schools that were affected by the boundary study. And actually those meetings, we had more representation. I would say anywhere between 20 to 30 people attended those various meetings. In addition to that, Mr. Adams referenced Mr. Everett, who we appreciate participated with us. We actually held 2 focus group meetings as well, again, different than the typical, and had 2 focus group meetings through collaboration with community engagement and identity. We had those through at Gaithersburg Elementary School and also Gaithersburg High School to reach more parents in the school community as a whole. So in total, we had 7, 9, and 5, 14 meetings, again, more than we typically do. We've had outreach, again, through our cluster coordinators, through our PTAs, through the principals. And actually, I received an email last week. The previous cluster coordinator for Gaithersburg, as well as the current one, said to me that she actually did, they both did, the previous, the current, and the 2 currents, actually did provide information through the PTA meetings. Again, not receiving responses back, but doing that outreach. So we have had outreach and outreach. As Mr. Adams said, it would have been, we didn't get the feedback that we would have liked to have received, but we have done more than we have done in the past in a typical boundary study to try to continue that outreach. And with the report also, and I know that there was testimony also said that the recommendation did come out, and it did come out on the 15th. It is a large document. The report, though, was out back in January, and the superintendent's recommendation really is a 3-page just recommendation. So there is a lot of information, but all that information, again, was on our website in both English and Spanish to get feedback. And actually, when we went out to the school communities, just so, and I think I brought this up when we talked at our work sessions, but when we went out to the school communities, we didn't actually go out, this was the last round back in March through May. We actually didn't go out and talk about the options per se, but we actually talked about the timeline, how you can give feedback, when the public hearings were scheduled, when the superintendent's recommendation was going to come out, and then ask them specific questions, some more about the factors than anything else, to make sure that if they wanted to be engaged, they could be engaged based upon the timeline that we were giving them.
So good evening. The only other piece I would add to what Ms. Karamijas and Mr. Adams shared. In addition to their Spanish-speaking staff member colleague of ours, I also wanted to elevate the importance and really the expertise of our parent community coordinators. They were a great support in this effort. And as I know, I heard from several of the parents who spoke, the importance of our community engagement does not look the same in every community. We must reach our families where they are. I know the board has heard me say that multiple occasions. And one of the ways that we do that, again, is working with our community, parent community coordinators, but also engaging our community. I know Ms. Karen Mijas mentioned identity, but I also want to elevate the NAACP. They were a great support with us as well. We must continue to do this work and support in collaboration with our community partners. So just wanted to elevate that as well.
I want to thank you for that very detailed answer. I know that it is difficult sometimes to reach some of our community members. I would just ask that you continue to work with our cluster coordinators and PTAs around their communication outlets, just in case they have suggestions. Thank you. At this time, I'll ask Ms. Aluni. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a number of questions and comments from what we just heard. I first want to thank you all for your response surrounding issues with communication in Gaithersburg High School. I really do think that Ms. Primazoic, my apologies if I mispronounced your name, raised a really good point. I know the board, we've received a lot of communication surrounding the Bethesda Westbrook study, but we really haven't heard much at all from the Gaithersburg community, and that's unfortunate. So I really urge the system to continue to look at different ways of reaching out to different communities, because that's a strength of our community, but also a huge problem when we start to undertake projects like this. So I appreciate your comments on that. I did want to elevate Ms. Stalker's comments about the Bethesda Westbrook Somerset study. I know we have a work session on the boundaries tomorrow, and I know this is very quick notice, but I was wondering if we could get a direct comparison between options 1 and 4 at that work session tomorrow. Just some of her comments were of interest to me, so I think I would like to hear more of a direct comparison between those two specifically. And then Poolesville High School, I'm assuming that the delay from a projected 23 completion to 24 is because of the way the economy looks right now. But if we could just answer the question about phase 1 versus phase 2, what's going to be completed in each of those?
Sure, that's a great question. And the completion date for the project, so as referenced, has consistently shown 24. What the superintendent's recommendation is to pursue this from a phase 1 to phase 2 perspective to ensure that we can continue with the work on schedule. So phase 1 work consists of the academic portion of the building. We're constructing the classroom wing alongside connecting to the science annex. And the goal of that project is to bid that project in the coming weeks and complete it for students to transition into that space in the summer of 23. So actually ahead of that 24 date that was referenced. The balance of the project, however, the phase 2 is what we're considering, is going back into the spaces, existing classroom spaces, to do everything from demo to remodel to rebuild of a lot of those spaces. So thinking of it from an academic to a the common spaces, the athletics portions of the building. We had originally proposed, I believe it was 20 to 25 portables on site. This method drastically reduces the number of portables because, again, students are staying in their existing classrooms while we build the academic space and then transition back following that. So we are still on target. There's a slight delay in the balance of the building, for that 6 months from that summer to that winter, but we're optimistic that we can accelerate along the way to try to get as much done for that the start of that 24 school year.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then lastly, I really wanted to thank our students who came out today from Springbrook and Wootton High School. Mr. Wen from Springbrook, I really appreciated what you said about the connection between facilities and equity, especially in our choice consortia, so our Down County Consortium and our Northeast Consortium. That's not something I've heard highlighted often, so I really appreciate that. And I'm sure Mr. Adams has been writing down your comments about handrails, an ADA issue, as well as lighting on the field. So hopefully those can be addressed. And then for Wootton High School, I know we had a large student turnout at our last meeting, and I went ahead and I looked at all of the submitted written testimony we got. 98% of it was from Wootton High School students, so I just want for the Wootton students, the Patriots who are out there watching, for you all to know that your coordinated effort and your advocacy certainly must have taken a lot of effort. So I know I speak for myself, and I think I speak for the rest of the board when I say that that is not lost on us. So I really appreciate the time and effort that went into that. Thank you.
Please turn your light on if you have a further comment. Ms. Harris.
I'd like to echo Ms. O'Looney's comments and thanks to the students who've spoken so clearly to the issues they live with in their schools every day, because our students outnumber all the rest of us dramatically, and they see things that none of the rest of us do. So I did want to, I think she left, Ms. Wang, who testified first on the Wootton, on the ADA issues, and I just did want to highlight and expand on Ms. O'Looney's comments about the student advocacy around the ADA issues at Wootton, which we have been hearing for a while now, and it has had real impact. And in the CIP recommendation are accelerated funds for site work at Wootton to address those ADA issues, and I think that is a direct result of that work of the students. And I did want to elevate Mr. Wen. His comments. Can we look into the issues in the locker rooms there, and the ventilation, and if there's, I know that school hasn't gotten any love in a while and it's not really scheduled for much work coming up, but if there are some near-term improvements we could make to those facilities, safety, sanitation, I think is key. And as Ms. O'Looney mentioned, the other safety issues on lighting. And also, Mr. Wynn was mentioning the lack of technology in some of the classrooms. If we can take a look and see why those classrooms aren't updated with the technology that our teachers and students are accustomed to using. And I had a question. Ms. Primazek in the Gaithersburg testimony mentioned an ADA issue at Laytonsville, which I think is already covered by the individual ADA projects that are on the CIP, but I apologize. I can't remember if it was Strawberry Knolls or Rosemont mentioned that the front door isn't automated, so students who have mobility challenges can't access the building. Can we check and see if there's a quick something that we can do to remedy that ADA access issue? And the Summit Hall need for space for their arts initiative. They were the request for relocatable, or if there's some other way that we can safely accommodate that program. And the mention of the leaking roof at Pool Middle, I don't see that listed. Can we take a look and see about that? And I guess the last thing I wanted to comment on was the I thought it was very interesting and elegant idea that the Clarksburg folks suggested about completing the boundary analysis for the new Clarksburg number 9 elementary school a year early to allow parents to potentially, fill out COSA requests to move to their newly assigned school a year in advance to possibly relieve that 300% overcapacity issue at Clarksburg Elementary. Who knows how those dominoes would fall, who would be assigned where, and who would actually choose to fill out that COSA and make that change a year early, but it is certainly an option to relieve what is really quite, those numbers are concerning, and I've seen that site too, and I'm not sure where you put more portables, so I think that's a creative solution. Is there a way that we can look into the feasibility of doing that sooner?
So we have been in conversations with Mr. Kutos, who can also chime in on this. One of the things that we've been reviewing is both accelerating the study, but also looking at, is there a way to, have, again, a liberal COSA type of process for Clarksburg Elementary. The one thing I would just caution in terms of the boundary study is that we can do the boundary study quickly, but the ultimate decisions, do have to follow, obviously, the process. So I think we've just shared along the way to not assume or what the ultimate outcome of the boundary would be, because that obviously has to go through the process and review of superintendent and board, but certainly something that we can review and to provide a variety of things to think about. But I will turn it over to Mr. Kutos to talk through that liberal COSA process that we've been talking through, and he can outline some of the thought processes that have gone into that.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Adams. As you mentioned, we have had some collaborative conversations with members of the Clarksburg Elementary School parent community around both short-term and long-term solutions to the overcrowding, and one of those conversations involved the possibility of engaging the COSA process for next school year. And we talked about the possibility of the window, utilizing the February 1 to April 1 window that comes up this spring to, in essence, offer the opportunity for families to access another elementary school within the cluster. So we are going to continue to investigate that process and continue to work collaboratively with the community to make a final determination around how we can provide that potentially short-term solution to some of the overcrowding at Clarksburg Elementary.
Thank you. And I think I'm going to channel Ms. O'Looney right now and say, can we also possibly look at other elementary schools that aren't in the cluster, looking at adjacent schools that may have some capacity? And thank you.
One thing I would add, Ms. Harrison, I think this is really important for long-term advocacy, though. The board, for many years, has recommended the Clarksburg project on a certain completion date. The board recommended this school to open this school year, and multiple delays at the county council have resulted in a 2-year delay. I would just say to all families that are engaged that the board has advocated for this community. We have seen the enrollment. We definitely need that advocacy to continue on from this point into both the county executive and county council, because that was a project that was delayed twice, and we can certainly see that some of the challenges that has presented.
Ms. Evans.
Sure, thank you. First, I wanted to say thank you to everyone that came out today. Love when we see and hear from our students, so thank you all. Most of the questions have been asked by my two colleagues, but I did want to say that I appreciate Dr. McKnight working in conjunction with Mr. Adams, creating a way to have a phase 2 for Poolesville High School. I want to elevate the testimony of Commission President Cook, and we heard from David Griffith as well. That second phase, there will, if I heard you correctly, Mr. Adams, there will be a look at the athletics portion of that too. Are you optimistic? I know construction costs are high. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So one of the positives of moving into a phased approach here, obviously we've seen and experienced some of the increase in construction costs. So again, we wanted to continue the project forward. So when the project bids on December 2nd, we'll bid it as a whole, and we're looking at the gym expansion or the reconstruction as an alternate as well. So one of the things that obviously following that bid, we're hopeful that we can afford the entire project, including the gym. But if for some reason there is a shortfall, we have time to then come back and ask for more money from county council for both phase 2 as well as the gym expansion along the way. So I think the positives of breaking this into two pieces allow us a little bit more time to work with our county partners to look for these fund resources to fund this critical project.
Great. It'll be good to try to get a high school gym at a high school. I was actually able to get to Poolesville the day after our cluster meeting, so thank you all for showing us the pictures. And it does make a difference. The rafters are low, and athletes have to really change the style of their game to be able to play in the gym. So if construction costs allow us to, it would be great to get a gym, right? And then could you just talk a little bit about, I know that Springbrook has come here before and talked about the lighting in the auditorium, and there have been issues over the years. I know that there's some difficulty with doing that. I mean, do you remember that, Mr. Adams, that we've heard about the lighting in the auditorium being kind of dim, and I thought there was a reason why it was difficult to fix that, or?
So I believe the issues a few years ago were bulbs that were out, and us having to remove a lot of the seating in order to replacement. That work was completed, but again, as we think about our auditorium, what you're hearing from some of the communities is some of the auditoriums that have not had some of the more recent renovations. They were built for performance, not for testing. So when we hold testing in these spaces, the lighting is not sufficient for that purpose. So we've been working with schools to go back in and relamp in many cases to provide that best of both worlds, the lighting for the performance space, but also lighting that can accommodate the testing that quite often happens in our auditorium spaces.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Next, I'm going to go to our board member on Zoom, Ms. Mandrowski.
Yes, thank you. Pretty much all of my questions have been mentioned. I do want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for coming out and testifying and submitting testimony. Two quick things that I just want to kind of comment on with the Gaithersburg cluster. I too have had concerns about the community engagement and everything. But I've also had to remind myself that when we started this process, it was quite some time ago, and we did get a lot of feedback then as well. And I know that, communities change and all of that, but I do know that it's been hard, but have tried very diligently to try and get as much community feedback as possible. Unfortunately, there's always more that we can do, and we need to continue to concentrate on that. And then the only other thing that I had was to Miss Looney's point about the Bethesda boundary, and I will look forward to seeing that. I have had a lot of concerns over whether or not number 4 should have also been a consideration. So finding out what the differences are between the two tomorrow will be very important. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Dr. Daka.
Yeah, thank you. I know we've talked about the Poolesville gym, but I just want you to know that Poolesville used to be a 6th to 12th grade school, and the gym was made for that. So just so you have an idea of, it's a serious concern. And I know that we've talked with staff and they are working on it. It is not that they're not mindful of this. They really would like to do something about it. Springbrook, can you tell us when the turf is going to be replaced there? I think it's probably in a list. Is it going to?
Well, I believe the testimony is in support of an artificial turf surface, which we do not currently have programmed. We are not funded for standalone artificial new installations, but certainly something that can be considered by the Board of Education for this particular school.
Okay, thank you. And the new Neilsville will have an elevator? I didn't say it loud enough. The new Neilsville will have an elevator?
Oh, absolutely, yes, absolutely,
okay.
yes.
All right. Extra staffing for Watkins Mill because they have the new young kids program. Is that going to happen, or are we, thinking about that? I think it's important because little kids cause a lot of cleanup and you want the place to be really sanitary, and they spill those juice boxes. So is that a consideration?
Yes, we're working with our building service teams. You know, that program is at Emery Grove, and we envision moving that entire building service team over to the high school. I would also just remind everyone that within this recommendation is to construct a standalone facility for that program at Watkins Mill High School. It was in there in a previous CIP, ultimately came out, but you know, we are very grateful and thankful that you know, the principal and staff and community of Watkins Mill has really worked to embrace this program and worked with us to incorporate it. But we are truly hoping that the funding for the standalone project that's in the recommendation does ultimately get approved both by board, county executive, and county council.
Yeah, the program at Emery Grove is really impressive, and I'm glad that I was able to visit it. The cosmetology program at Gaithersburg, they need more space. Is that what I heard?
I believe yes, we did hear that is a growing program. We have heard that is a very popular program at that school, and we will certainly take a step back and look at, are there spaces to maybe convert, to expand it. I would say again that, you know, Gaithersburg, we see that enrollment continuing to grow. And you know, Gaithersburg is one of the schools identified in the Crown High School, you know, impact area. So certainly that program, as well as some of the other program initiatives that we heard from Dr. McKnight, will continue to be the conversation. But we will look to see how we can accommodate and expand that program in the short term.
Yeah, that program has been there a long time, since when the schools were integrated. Very long time. So I know it's popular. And John Poole, the roof leak, I assume that's on your list? The roof leak at John Poole.
I will go back and confirm that one is not on my current list of work orders, but one that I will go back and look to make sure we are addressing quickly, both short-term and long-term.
Thank you.
Ms. Silvestri.
Thank you. I wanted to reiterate what Mr. Adams has said and Mr. Gordon. We want to build all of these projects. We hear you. We know, we've been to these schools. We know the need is there. And so we really look forward to working with our county council, because as you know, they appropriate the funding, and we're doing the best we can with the budget we have and making very difficult decisions. So thank you for your testimony today, and I hope that we can come out and speak directly with the county council as well. They want to help as well, for sure. We've heard a lot of important things today. I don't want to bring up this here and that there, but Mr. Adams, all of these issues are important, and you know, how do you work based on what you hear with the principals to address all of the issues that we heard today? I want to make sure that people understand that they came out here tonight and they're being heard, and there's something going to be done about it.
Yes, and great question. Every testimony, every item that's presented, you know, we take that back to our teams. You know, we do the homework research, and we will provide a response to every comment that's both presented in written form, but also presented at the podium, as well as we will reach out to individual schools to start to talk through, particularly for those that we're not necessarily aware of, to talk through those challenges, and then really start to develop a priority list and work again with the communities so that they understand when work could happen, if some of the work is funding dependent, just so that everyone understands it, and it's a very transparent process. So it will be, so again, we will answer all these in written form, post it to both our website and the board's website, and also start the outreach with the individual principals and start that community building beyond that.
Thank you. And I believe that there's also a new work order tracking system. Is there any updates on that, so that when schools are putting in requests, community members are able to track the status of them?
Sure, and that's a program we're working through. We've gone through a selection process, and ultimately the implementation is the next phase that we will bring to the board shortly. But that is a work order system that will make it a much more transparent process, one that principals can log into anywhere from their phones, that our communities can have viewing access to see what work orders are out there. But yes, just to modernize that process so that we can all see this current status, what's there, what's not, and if things have been completed in full or partial. But one we're very excited for and hopefully implementing starting this spring and into the next school year.
Thank you. And then regards to the BCC cluster, it's my understanding that option 1 is recommended by the superintendent because it decreases overutilization at Bethesda, even though it's still not where it should be. And at the same time also decreases utilization at Somerset significantly because Somerset's site does not allow for an addition to be built. And so this is our opportunity to do something about that because the site does not allow for future additions. New things that I heard tonight was the farms distribution. That's not something that I picked up when we looked at it previously, so I guess tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to look at that. And also, just want to understand this growth dynamic in downtown Bethesda and how you think that's going to impact overcrowding at Bethesda in the future. The Bethesda Elementary School with Walter Johnson, be realistic, that's going to take some time to get through this very jam-packed CIP, and so I don't want to rely on that as a solution. And finally, Mr. Adams, the one thing that was very troubling today was just the split up of neighborhoods, neighborhoods going to 4 different elementary schools. How do we justify that? Is that not something that we prioritize in terms, I think it was Bethesda Elementary School or East Bethesda and maybe Somerset that were going to 4 different elementary schools?
So I believe Ms. Karamias can provide a much more detailed response to that one and show through presentation tomorrow.
Okay.
The one thing I would also add, though, is that there was comments about development impacts to Bethesda Elementary. One of the goals, again, of the boundary is to look at the capacity of Bethesda Elementary. And if you look at some of the other options that do not address that growth or that capacity, we end up in very similar situations of what we're working to mitigate at Clarksburg. Again, growth with challenging sites to provide temporary classroom opportunities. So we will dive into some of the neighborhood elements. Again, we spoke at the work session about these roads. This is an older community. The roads are small. They do not feel like a natural divide of what a service area may look like, but ultimately, through this process, we had to create zones and we had to look for ways to address all 4 goals and priorities of the boundary study analysis, but particularly looking to how we can address the overutilization at Bethesda Elementary and avoid some potential challenging situations should we not relieve that school in the near future.
Thank you.
I just have one final comment about Springbrook. They came to us last year about the lighting situation in the auditorium for testing, and this raises equity concerns to me because equity in testing conditions needs to be across our schools in order to be able to justify the results you're getting almost, because that could have an impact on how well they do. So I'm very concerned about that. I did hear you say that you're looking into it and attempting to address it, but this is the 2nd year in a row they've raised it. So I just want you to know that I think we need to move on that.
Yes, President Wolf, and I would say we have performed some improvements over there. We were focused on a testing room and location, so we will certainly go back. If more testing accommodations and improvements are needed, obviously in the auditorium, we will pursue that. But I rest assured we did perform work at Springbrook, looking for and responding to some of those past testimonies. So this is a perfect example. We re-engaged with the principal administration, truly understand what the challenges are, and if obviously understanding if the auditorium is going to be a primary testing location, we will certainly respond accordingly.
Thank you. All right, we can continue. Next up is Charles Howing.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for having us tonight. I just want to start out by saying the Fair Access Committee that I represented was created by the town of Poolesville to ensure equity and investments by the county and facilities in the county for our area. We're a very small area, and we recognize that a voice needs to be said and heard more than once. So you're going to hear some things from me that you heard before, but we know we have to do that in order to make sure that people understand where we're coming from. This slide one is up already. Schools are vital parts of their community. They both contribute to the vitality and are affected by local conditions. This is especially so in the case of Poolesville High School. The town of Poolesville and the Western County, as I just said, is far from most of the services the county provides to residents that help enrich and support their lives. Poolesville in the Western County, as this slide shows, which encompasses the bulk of the Ag Reserve, is 15 miles from a community center and 30 miles from a senior center. It is similarly far from many medical services and mental health specialists and doctors that our people need to see. Indeed, a defining characteristic of the Western County is the distances most of its residents are from convenient and ready access to the services and facilities most county residents take for granted. The county created the Ag Reserve by limiting or prohibiting investment in major developments or commercial buildings, but that should not mean that it limits investment in the 15,000 people who live there. When the Ag Reserve was created, and I was around when it was created, promises were made that its rural, lightly populated character would not lead to county leaders ignoring the needs of its people. Unfortunately, that is just what has happened. This year, after decades of effort by our local citizens and PTSAs, the county approved making PHS, the oldest school in the county, a major capital project. As David said, it included a budget of $71 million to do that, and we thank you for that move. It's very important. Even with this, however, the county still does not appear to be all in when it comes to treating Poolesville and the Western County fairly. Slide 2, please. The county has so far refused to include a new, larger, or expanded gym or a wellness center in its plans for the new school. The main gym is so small, as this slide shows, that 200 local citizens were unable to watch the 2018 girls basketball team clinch a playoff spot for the first time in the school's history. Student athletes and their needs for practice space are a priority, but it is also important to have a gym that truly serves our community. Slide 3, please. So this is where some data that you may not have seen before. I know that Judy saw it as she came to our breakfast, but our school is the smallest in the county in terms of student population, but it fields just as many sports teams as any other school, some 50 teams ranging from bocce to football. And if you look on this slide, we actually have more student athletes than many other schools, and yet our gym is appreciably smaller than any other school. We also need, as David said, and I don't need to reiterate this, but he did a good job of explaining it, renovated playing fields as well to make our athletic program even more complete. Slide 4, please. Wellness centers have demonstrated that they offer significant benefits for the health and learning outcomes of our students. The county's own policy statements, recent evidence in public reports, and the likely severe impacts of the pandemic and the resulting social isolation of our youth point to conclusively the importance of such centers in helping our young people cope with the many societal pressures they face today and will face tomorrow. The unique characteristics of Poolesville High School, particularly its distance from mental health and counseling support services and the lack of county services such as community centers that other schools have nearby, strongly supports the case for inclusion of a wellness center in the plans for construction of our new high school. My son-in-law teaches at a down county school, and he has told me many times how important and supportive the wellness center is in helping children cope with many, often emotionally draining issues they face each day. The county's recent zip code study, which is actually referenced here in one of the charts, ranked Poolesville the 36th in health outcomes out of all the 36 zip codes it studied, in other words, dead last. This suggests, and one of the things this suggests, is that distance from convenient access to medical services is a significant issue for the Western County people. And I know this, I ran the transportation program for WUMCO. We had to drive a lot of people who lived way out in the areas outside of Poolesville and the places like Dickerson and Barnesville, way out from any specialist, and they could not get there. And a lot of those health outcomes are affected by distance. Poolesville's in this same area, and we believe because of its distance, it also deserves to have a wellness center included in the construction of the school. I thank you for your time.
Next is Brandon Conway.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Brandon Conway. I am the PTA president of Burtonsville Elementary School. Thank you for the opportunity to advocate for funding to improve Burtonsville Elementary School. The Burtonsville Elementary School PTA is submitting our request on behalf of the 600 plus children that attend BES. For the last 4 years, we have raised our concerns about safety and the school's core facilities to Montgomery County Public Schools. Several Band-Aid solutions were provided, while many were never addressed. Specifically, during arrival and dismissal, the school's traffic infrastructure cannot safely and efficiently accommodate pedestrians and car traffic. This issue has been amplified by the pandemic with a significant increase of parents dropping off and picking up students daily. Additionally, due to space restrictions, we have witnessed buses that are backed up to the main highway, Route 198, until other buses unload students. The current configuration of the parking lot lengthens the time it takes for all students to get to class and begin valuable instruction time. We request a dedicated bus lane, a dedicated carpool lane, and extending the parking lot for the safety of accessibility of the students and staff. We are concerned about space utilization for the school's cafeteria, which is also used as an all-purpose room. The cafeteria is not designed to host a large body of students with an inadequate kitchen and lack of general spacing. We constantly hear students complain that they do not have enough time to eat because the lines are so long during lunch. This is particularly alarming because studies have proven that there is a link between a student's health, eating and exercise, and academic achievement. Burtonsville Elementary School is limited in hosting assemblies and award ceremonies in the cafeteria due to maximum occupant load capacity. Use of the school's gymnasium is not a viable option due to the lack of airflow and seating. We request the renovation of the cafeteria and the addition of multi-purpose space for the enhancement of the Burtonsville Elementary School community in building experience. The BES access roads are full of potholes and have not been properly maintained. We request that the repairs be made to the access road as well. We request that part of the project P5000511, resurfacing residential rural road, be used for the repairs to the BES access roads. To support our request for funding, refer to the latest feasibility study prepared to the Montgomery County Board of Education by Samaha Associates that identifies 3 important areas for improvement at BES: classroom capacity, core facility capacity, and safety. The feasibility assessment provided 4 options for building improvements. Option 1 provides a 2-story structure for additional classrooms and multipurpose room, cafeteria, as well as configured bus lanes and parking lot. Of the 4 options presented, option 1 provides the best value for maximum impact. As the total cost is $12,334,000 compared to the option 2 and option 3 that enhances existing space but are approximately $252,000 to $527,000 more than first option. Option 4 does not address the safety and traffic concerns. According to Montgomery County Public Schools, at a glance, BES projected future capacity is 735 pupils. The data also notes that of the 3 cluster elementary schools, BES is the oldest facility constructed in 1952 with some modernizations made in 1993. Given the completion of the Bentley Park housing development and Montgomery County's plan to convert the Burtonsville crossing into a mixed-use facility, complete with housing and retail, there is a high probability that BES future capacity will meet or exceed the 735 pupil projection. Also, we have concerns with the utilization rate standard with Burtonsville Elementary School is one of Tier 3 elementary schools with a greater than or equal to 135% utilization and a greater than or equal to 115 seat deficit. I'm going to wrap up.
Thank you. Next is Catherine Benderev and Jean Fritz.
Hello, is this on? Thank you. I'm Catherine Benderev, and on behalf of the homeowners of the Mains community, we want the board to know we understand that the decision to have athletic facilities as part of Phase 2 of the Woodward High School project has been made, but the placement of these facilities has not been finalized. Therefore, we are in support of option 1A with respect to the location of the athletic facilities. The Mains is part of the Pembroke development located adjacent to the southeast corner of the Woodward High School property. No matter which option is selected, our community will be more severely and unfairly impacted than any adjacent developments, especially with respect to drainage, automobile and foot traffic, parking, noise, lighting, trespassing, setbacks, and retaining wall height. Although we have been aware for some time that a new high school would be built where the former Tilden Middle School was located, the homeowners were never invited to stakeholder meetings until summer of 2021. We were surprised that we were not notified by the Board of Education or Montgomery County prior to this time, since planning seems to have begun as early as 2015. Last week, we held a meeting of homeowners, after which 50% signed a letter to the board that you should have received. The failure to include the Mains homeowners in any planning efforts until this past summer is not in compliance with the Board of Education's educational facilities planning policy. This is most disturbing in that the decision to add a stadium was made sometime between 2015 and 2019. I'm here with Ms. Fritz, who served as a member and president of the Homeowners Association from 2010 to 2018. And she can testify that our Homeowners Association did not receive any notification of planning meetings or nor an invitation or opportunity for input into the Woodward High School project. Further, to illustrate the inequity given to our community, we cite minimize the impact on Edson Lane property as a fourth goal of the construction project in the slide deck presented recently during Phase 2 work Session 3 held on October 21st of this year. It appears there's a lack of similar attention given to other adjacent communities. Edson and other surrounding communities have some tree buffer between the school and the property lines. We do not. The few trees that buffered our property have been removed without warning. Thus, we can expect significant noise pollution, especially with option 4 at the Mains. In addition, we have already suffered some mud damage because of drainage problems from the construction site. We believe the construction site is not in compliance with Montgomery County setback regulations. We are asking for clarification of the setbacks that are being planned, excuse me, and the implementation of maximum setbacks that the project will allow. Whereas retaining walls currently proposed are subsurface in the northeast portion of the site, those of us on the southeast portion will have retaining walls that are 7 to 13 feet above grade. The extension of the Timberlawn Park walking path will serve as a funnel for foot traffic both behind and in front of our homes, resulting from a majority of off-campus parking that will obviously occur. This is especially troubling since the path from Edson Lane has already been removed from the site plan. The walking path is extremely close to the Mains private homes, where families and older adults will be affected by early morning, afternoon, and evening noise. This extension will increase the demand for automobile parking and traffic, both in our neighborhood and surrounding streets. Students and visitors will park on streets including Galaxinia Drive, Sugar Bush Lane, Bloomingdale Drive, Bloomingdale Court, Bloomingdale Terrace, Moss Rock Drive, Snowshoe Lane, Magic Mountain Drive, and others. And parking at the Timberlawn Park parking lot will also be impacted. Access for emergency safety vehicles and law enforcement is complicated for all but option 1A. So all phase 2 options have the potential negative issues associated with construction, lighting, parking, noise, and movement of people through our neighborhoods. But option 1A has the least negative impact on our community. The selection of option 4 will increase these impacts on the mains by an order of magnitude. We are deeply concerned about the degradation of our quality of life and property values, most especially with the selection of option 4. We agree with the WJ Clusters coordinators that option 1A is the most equitable for the surrounding communities and therefore should be selected. Option 1A makes best use of field space for all sports, it's most ADA accessible, and provides the easiest access for emergency response and safety. We urge you to choose option 1A. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jim McNulty.
Good evening, Dr. McKnight, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Jim McNulty, and while I am here tonight in my personal capacity, I'm the former president of the Saybrook Homeowners Association, the current chair of the Old Town Advisory Committee for the City of Gaithersburg, and as of this past Tuesday, council member-elect for the City of Gaithersburg. It is good to see you all again. I'm here tonight in support of the interim superintendent's recommendation for the boundaries of Gaithersburg Elementary, number 8, at Kelly Park, and Forest Oak Middle School. More than a year ago, I had the privilege of testifying before this body, and I asked you all then for a gesture of good faith. As Mayor Ashman noted in his testimony 20 years ago, a wrong had been committed against my neighbors when the boundaries of Forest Oak Middle School were set. That decision set off 2 decades of mistrust between our community and the Board of Education. When I testified before you, I stated that you had an opportunity to right that wrong. I asked in considering the boundaries for the new elementary school, that you also consider the boundaries for the middle schools as well. And Representative Smondrowski offered an amendment, which you passed. And today, the superintendent's recommendation is the fulfillment of that gesture of good faith. By adopting these boundaries, all of the contiguous neighborhoods that surround Kelly Park, which have sacrificed a portion of our beloved neighborhood park, get to reap the benefits of the spoils of having a state-of-the-art elementary school within walking distance of our homes. It also fixes the fact that currently, if you lived at Forest Oak Middle School, you couldn't actually attend Forest Oak Middle School. These boundaries will help foster community in our neighborhoods. It will also reduce the number of school buses that regularly traverse through Saybrook, not to mention the positive impact it will have reducing overcrowding at 5 Gaithersburg cluster elementary schools. My children will not get to benefit from this new elementary school, but my neighbors will, and my city will. I ask you to approve these boundaries, heal these wounds, and let's move forward as a community. Education is so important to the future of our young people. This school will help provide tremendous opportunities for the children of Gaithersburg, and these boundaries will ensure that adequate resources are being spent on all our children, not just at the new school, but the entire cluster. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration, and thank you to all the MCPS staff who spent the past year plus working on this project. And on a personal note, I look forward to working with all of you as a member of the Gaithersburg City Council over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Carolyn Garvey.
Hello. I am a Gaithersburg Elementary School parent who lives in the same neighborhood as Jim McNulty. It's the GA1B neighborhood that is adjacent to the new number 8 Gaithersburg School. My testimony is also about the superintendent's recommendation for the boundary for the new school. And while I was a cluster coordinator for the previous 4 years, I advocated for MCPS to address the overutilization in our cluster, and I have been enjoying watching the new school being built. In general, I agree with the superintendent's recommendation for the boundary of the school. In my opinion, option 4 was the best of the 7 options because it allows the surrounding neighborhoods that live within walking distance to the new school to go to that school. The elementary students in my neighborhood can walk to the school rather than ride a bus, and the middle schoolers in my neighborhood will have a shorter and safer walk to Forest Oak Middle School rather than the longer walk and crossing over busy streets to get to Gaithersburg Middle School. The superintendent's recommendation also reduces the utilization for at least 4 of the 5 elementary schools and creates a continuous service area for Rosemont Elementary School. However, with this recommendation, I noticed that the cluster will still have 2 schools that are over 700 students with a high farms rate. Specifically, the number 8 school and Gaithersburg Elementary School are expected to be over 700 students in 6 years and have an expected farms rate of over 75%. My understanding is that MCPS now builds for a capacity of 740 students. Now, this might work fine with students that have a farms rate of like 50% or less, but it strains staff working at schools that have high farms rates of over 70%. And I'm advocating that we reduce the number of students at schools with high farms rate, not just for Gaithersburg, I'm talking about all of the county. These schools have more students with needs and struggles with providing enrichment activities like field trips because families cannot afford to pay for the MCPS buses that take their kids to field trip locations. Now, don't get me wrong, the new school does help with the overutilization at multiple Gaithersburg schools, but it is not a silver bullet, and nor was it ever intended to be a silver bullet for the cluster. MCPS's central office, the Board of Education, and parents need to remember that. I will reiterate what I've advocated for in the past CIP meetings regarding the Gaithersburg cluster, and that there needs to be more than one approach for our cluster. Thank you for listening. I also want to add to the Gaithersburg Cluster Coordinator's presentation earlier that the request for lights at the Gaithersburg Elementary School has been something we've advocated for prior years, especially also the front door at Strawberry Knoll Elementary School. We've been asking that for a few years now, and also the lights are needed at the Gaithersburg High School parking lot. Thank you.
Next is Michael Owens.
There we go.
It's on.
It's on? All right. Do I push this? Okay. Good evening, board members, superintendent, and MCPS staff. My name is Mike Owens. Over the past 7 years, my 3 children have experienced Clarksburg Elementary utilizations of 100% perfect, 150% uncomfortable, 200% painful, and 250% absolutely untenable. Recently, MCPS published a projected 2-year enrollment increase of 192 students for fall 2023, which approaches 300% utilization. I kindly urge you to build Clarksburg Elementary School number 9 on time in fall 2023. Also, we need bathrooms, parking spaces, and help to get us through the next year and a half. I've seen a night and day difference in my children's education when vast amounts of staff time and emotion are wasted cramming almost 800 kids into a facility built for 311, and then dealing with the endless cascade of problems that result. I cannot speak highly enough of our outstanding MCPS teachers, administrators, and building service teams, but due to facility issues, MCPS is failing to meet my lowered expectations for my children's education. Let me walk you through a typical morning. Because our parking lot was sized for realistic utilization, teachers must arrive 45 minutes ahead of their duty day to claim a parking space. Those who lose the race for a space pop the curb to park in the corners, or worse, park off-site. Clarksburg Elementary is officially a no-walker school for good reason. It's isolated. There are no surrounding neighborhoods, no legal street parking, no sidewalks, no shoulders, and no pedestrian safety. To break gridlock, buses must drive the wrong way down a narrow 2-lane road. Unless something major changes, if buses stopped doing this, the school would cease to function. This year, it took 3 long weeks of hard work from administrators and the entire community to finally get all the students through the front door by the morning late bell. Dismissal is another exhausting all-hands-on-deck effort. I would love to pick my daughters up at school so I could confidently sign them up for piano lessons, but I'm doing my part by never going to my kids' elementary school. Speaking of which, CES needs an army of classroom volunteers to support our teachers, but where will they park? Overcrowding impacts safety and instruction time in so many ways. When students in portables need to use a restroom, they take a buddy or two to walk outside safely, badge into the building, and then wait in line. Our entire 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades are in portables, so when one of those students needs to use the restroom, multiple students lose up to 15 minutes of classroom time. In October, I called 4 builders and confirmed 230 new homes will be delivered this school year. The Montgomery County Planning website shows another 944 new homes are approved, and I'm terrified. 2 years ago, I stood here in this room with a CES at 200% utilization sign. Today, I ask the BOE to acknowledge that 250% utilization is unacceptable for any period of time, let alone another year and a half. Please provide portable bathrooms and more parking spaces and ensure that Clarksburg Elementary number 9 opens on time. CES needs more attention and partnership to serve our children together. Thank you.
Next is Stephen Silverman.
Good evening. I'm Steve Silverman. I currently have 2 kids at Bethesda Elementary, a daughter in 4th grade and a daughter in 2nd grade named Mia. We live in Zone B8, which under option 1 for the Bethesda rezoning would require Mia to attend Somerset Elementary School next year while her sister stays at Bethesda Elementary. I'm speaking out against option 1 for 2 main reasons. First, option 1 ignores community input. The surveys that were conducted about the boundary options showed that 2 factors are far and away the most important to parents: geography and stability. For this reason, parents overwhelmingly supported option 4, not option 1. At a prior board meeting, there was mention that crowded schools could have a negative health impact on children. While this may be the feeling of parents at a school as overcrowded as Clarksburg Elementary, the parents in the Bethesda cluster found geography and stability 10 times more important than utilization, meaning that students are thriving at their current schools. Parents say that the negative impact of overutilized schools in the Bethesda cluster pales in comparison to the negative impact of forcing students to a new school and splitting up neighborhoods. Second, option 1 unnaturally divides our neighborhood of East Bethesda into 2 zones, B7 and B8. At the October 28th board meeting, Adrian Calamijas and Seth Adams explained that Bethesda has older neighborhoods with narrower streets, a comment Mr. Adams repeated again tonight, and stated that it was reasonable to question why a zone would be drawn using a small street within an entirely cohesive neighborhood. That is the genesis of zone B8. Option 1 unnaturally slices off just a corner section of street from the rest of a contiguous neighborhood. That slice comes at the expense of students, like my daughter Mia, who would attend a different elementary school than almost every other child in her walkable neighborhood. I can't help but wonder if one reason community voices have been ignored and a small neighborhood has been unnaturally divided is because we do not have a representative on this board who is familiar with our area. Dr. McKnight acknowledged after her passing that, quote, Pat O'Neill was a fierce champion for staff, students, and families, unquote. In February 2021, my wife emailed every member of this board about the boundary study. Pat was the only one who responded. Pat knew our community and knew that the affected elementary school PTAs and parents overwhelmingly favored a different option, option 4, that would maintain the geographic integrity of our neighborhoods and stability for our kids. Councilmember Smondrowski recognized at the October 26th board meeting that one of you could bring an alternative option up for rezoning consideration. Unfortunately, our fierce champion could not make our community's preferred alternative recommendation, and none of you gave voice to the families Pat served. Pat chairs this empty. Our community remains unrepresented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Brian Anlou.
Good evening, board members. I'm here as an individual and parent at Greencastle Elementary School. Unfortunately, Greencastle does not have a PTA, so you get me. I'm also a former member of, or former parent of Burtonsville Elementary school. And you already heard from Mr. Conway about some of the challenges at Burtonsville Elementary with the parking and the cafeteria space and so on and so forth. I would like to say that those are very similar to what you're seeing at Greencastle Elementary School in terms of the parent pickup and drop off and other just kind of challenges with overcrowding in the cafeteria space and ability to hold an assembly. So I wanted to first thank Dr. McKnight for proposing or recommending the 2 additions for these 2 schools. They've been on the books now for nearly a decade, and I'd like to propose an alternative approach. The county and MCPS already owns land in Bentley Park. It's a community in Burtonsville. It's about a 12-acre site. For the cost of the 2 additions that are currently planned for Burtonsville Elementary and Greencastle, you could probably build a new school for about the same cost. It's a little bit difficult to tell based on an OLO report from 2017 because of the need to update the costs for construction, inflation, and things like that. But I'm guessing you're probably going to need to update the cost for the 2 additions as well. So again, I would say that you could probably build a new school for the cost of the 2 additions. With that, you heard Mr. Conway talk a little bit about the Burtonsville Crossing redevelopment, which the projections don't currently take into account. In addition to that redevelopment, the county has put out an RFP for the redevelopment of the Burtonsville Park and Ride lot, which will also likely contain some housing, a housing component. And again, that's not reflected in the projections. So I think fiscally it's the right thing to do to build a new school for rather than 2 additions. The last thing I would point out on that is that currently no students can walk to Burtonsville Elementary School. It's 100% bust because it's way too dangerous to walk on 198. There aren't sidewalks. There just isn't a safe way to get there. If you build a school in Bentley Park, it's a neighborhood school. Kids would actually be able to walk there. So you're encouraging a healthier way for the kids to get there. I would just turn the board's attention to my October 30 opinion piece in Bethesda magazine that kind of covers some of the more of the specifics. And then I would just highlight 3 quick points that are not in the opinion piece on Greencastle Elementary specifically. The school only has 4 sets of student bathrooms for approximately 665 students. There are also safety concerns in the event of an inclement weather event and being able to bring all the students inside the school and keep them away from the windows. They'd have to put them in bathroom space because there just isn't enough space at Greencastle. And the portables currently on the school are taking up the blacktop. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Laura Adu.
Where's the button?
It's on.
Okay, sorry. Dr. McKnight, President Wolf, and members of the board, my name is Jane Learman, and I represent the Meadowvale communities of the Capella HOA, Meadowvale West, and Meadowvale Estates. We are part of SK3, and our children currently attend Strawberry Knoll Elementary School, which was built for Meadowvale 30 years ago. Our communities unanimously oppose option 4. We also demand a hearing on November 16th so our entire cluster can have a say in this process. In the fall of 2020, a handful of exhausted Strawberry Knoll families attended a Zoom meeting to discuss the boundary study. MCPS planning presented many pages of complex charts, maps, and summaries. The pandemic was raging, and our parents were told that our kids would be zoned out of Strawberry Knoll, which was heartbreaking. The exhausted parents were presented with 7 options of reassignment, and 6 out of 7 were to GES 8. It's slightly shorter in distance, but much shorter in time, given the congestion on Summit Avenue at arrival and dismissal. All our other options were closer and acceptable to our community. Parents were not allowed to speak at the meeting. Instead, they were given a carefully worded questionnaire that guided them to answers decided by MCPS, then radio silence. Quite by accident, on October the 27th, I found out that our children would be bused to the school farther away on Summit Avenue. This is option 4, which we oppose. The reason, decreasing the farms rate at GES to 70%. For those not familiar with the Gaithersburg cluster, we have farms rates everywhere. Families. We have them at Strawberry Knoll, GES 8, until Old Town. I went door to door with the news. Nobody knew about this. 5 out of 7 of our Capella HOA neighbors with children are immigrants of color. They have worked their whole lives to achieve the American dream, and now they're being told their babies are being sent to the farthest school. There are 3 closer. They feel angry and just very upset. Sending our kids to a school because of a random algorithm will not improve the lives of the students who desperately need resources at Gaithersburg and Summit Avenue. Our exhausted children cannot help them after a long bus ride. Also, option 4 sends our kids from an overcapacity school, Strawberry Knoll, to at capacity school, GES1. GES8 has lower capacity and is less crowded. All but option 4 send our neighbors to the less crowded school. But maybe there's something going on. First off, our community contains French-speaking Africans, Ethiopians, and Asians. My neighbor across the street was completely shut out of the process because he speaks Chinese. My neighbor from West Africa opined that the quick change to option 4, which is farther away, may be because our community is filled with immigrants. That is the antithesis of equity and certainly will not improve the social and emotional health of our children. Please prove my neighbor wrong. If we cannot stay at Strawberry Knoll, which is within walking distance, please do not consider option 4 and choose one that will restore the faith of my immigrant neighbors in
Thank you.
MCPS.
We have your testimony. Next is Gabriel Adu.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present testimony to you today. My name is Gabriel Ado, and I've lived in the Meadowvale West community since 1993. That feeds into Strawberry Knoll Elementary School. My children attended Strawberry Knoll. Mr. Davis, I think you might like to hear that Jacob is now a teacher at Burtonsville Elementary School. My wife is a first grade teacher at Strawberry Knoll today, which also allows me to be on the staff softball team. I will proudly share always that I am passionate about the Knoll, as we like to refer to it. I appreciate the challenges that exist with all of the issues shared tonight and every day, especially with boundary changes that are never easy nor without making some likely significant percentage of those affected upset. My testimony today is that we seriously consider the low, quite frankly, poor number of individuals participating in the community meetings and survey responses that ultimately impacted in some form or fashion the decision of option 4 because it is the least effective and least preferred by our community. I have heard similar narratives several times already tonight. Even the documents on the MCPS website are inconsistent as option 4 sends Strawberry Knoll students to Gaithersburg Elementary in some sections and in fact Gaithersburg number 8 in other sections. I ask if enough community outreach was done. Was enough community feedback received to make such an important decision? I appreciate your additional efforts that were noted today, but in the midst of a global pandemic, we simply did not do enough to drive feedback and engagement. Unfortunately, poorly attended PTA meetings may be the worst method to communicate. How many people were actually presented to at a PTA meeting? I suggest a minimum attendance requirement before it can even count as outreach. 60 total individuals were present at meetings 1 and 2. 30 total individuals attended meetings 3 and 4. Please note that only 4 options were presented in the first 2 meetings and 3 additional options were added later. This only added to the confusion. 20 total individuals attended follow-up Q&A meetings. Surveys had an equally poor number of responses. Survey 1 had a total of 8 respondents. 8. And Survey 2, 64 responses, with the Knoll having the most responses. The community was reluctant and disappointed, but ultimately accepted there was no option that offered our community to stay at the Knoll. I understand someone has to go to a new school. While I am a bit confused why so many COSAs are approved at Strawberry Knoll, but I don't want to digress. I'm here today advocating for my community against option 4 as it still doesn't address overcrowding issues at the Knoll. Options 1, 2, 3, and 4 keep the Knoll at 125 to 124% from 2022-23 to 25-26. While it may be okay with Mayor Ashman, it is not with the Knoll community. In closing, my opinion is that Option 4 is the worst of all options at the Knoll community, and I ask that you reconsider with options 5, 6, or 7, as those better affect the Knoll community, and the project objectives. Respectfully presented. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Carla Seguigda. Please play the audio.
Carla Squina. President Wolf, Vice President Silvestri, and members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. Carla Squina. I've been practicing pediatrics for 30 years, 16 of them in this community. What brings me here today is an issue of growing concern to me: environmental devastation and how the decisions we make today affect the future well-being of our children. Global warming and climate change are upon us. No, not in a generation, not next year, not tomorrow, but today. Just this past year, hotter temperatures and drier conditions fueled the largest wildfire in California history, burning 1 million acres. Along the Atlantic and Gulf coasts, record-breaking hurricanes wreaked havoc on coastal communities. Locally, temperatures in our own neighborhoods are creeping upwards, and summer rains are now torrential downpours. Leaders around the world call on us to think globally, act locally to confront global warming. We have the perfect opportunity to do that today. MCPS has proposed 4 options for the layout of athletic facilities at the future Woodward High School. 1 would destroy a large portion of an urban microforest. 3 would not. All would accommodate a full complement of athletic amenities that are ADA compliant and offer equal access under Title X. Why would we even consider destroying the forest when it's not absolutely necessary? What message does that send to our children? A recent international study of 10,000 youth found that almost 50% are anxious about global warming and the lack of action by adults. Yes, that's us. We're the adults here, the ones setting priorities and making decisions. I've spent my professional life caring for children in many different settings, well-to-do and impoverished, urban and rural, at home and abroad. I'm well-versed in the social and environmental determinants of health. The children in our community are fortunate to have access to a wealth of resources to grow up healthy and prepared for their futures. But global warming and climate change will spare no one. Our children and grandchildren will face new diseases, crop failures, a lack of clean water, and dangerous temperatures and weather. We need to act now. The challenge to slow global warming may seem daunting, but if we start with baby steps close to home, we can make a difference. Let's take that first step today by protecting the Edson Lane Forest. Thank you.
Next is Melissa Green Parker. Please play the audio.
Melissa Green Parker. Doctors, McKnight, Mr. Wolf, and members of the board, thank you for your time to hear my capital projects testimony. My name is Melissa Green Parker. I'm a proud member of the Burtonsville community. I'm here today as a parent and community member to advocate for the 600 plus children attending Burtonsville Elementary School, or BES. BES is one of the oldest elementary school facilities in the Northeast Consortium. It was constructed in 1952 with some modernization occurring 30 years ago. Last year's updated HVAC system was a good faith measure because our children no longer need to arrive at the school with blankets in their backpack. On the other hand, they still arrive to an aging school building that has very noticeable infrastructure flaws. Enrollment at BES continues to exceed capacity, and over the next 6 years, the enrollment will continue to exceed. This fact alone is very concerning and needs to be addressed soon. The proposed CIP addition to obtain more classrooms and a multi-purpose room or cafeteria at BES is warranted now, as these improvements are very, very much needed and long overdue. With 6 separate lunch periods, there's constant noise in the buildings over the course of the day. The hallway noise is an unwarranted distraction that interferes with focused learning efforts. My child constantly complains about long lunch lines and very limited time to eat. Furthermore, the cafeteria also doubles as an all-purpose room. So BES staff struggle to host events like assemblies, drama productions, award ceremonies, because the cafeteria space is not designed to host large numbers of students, teachers, and staff members. The last lunch period ends after 1:45 p.m., thus there isn't much time to clean the cafeteria space and implement an event before the 3:50 dismissal. The space cannot adequately accommodate after-school events because of the need to factor in space for family members. The value of incorporating art and music programming into a child's education cannot be understated, and there's a growing body of evidence-based research that shows that involvement in music and the arts increases student engagement and encourages consistent attendance. The inadequate space, size and quality, combined with mounting overcrowding issues, are having very having a very serious negative effect on BES, and this is unacceptable. Members of our beloved BES community expect and deserve a great school to meet the needs of the students and staff. So please do not delay your vote to convert the recommended BES project to one that is approved within the FY23 appropriation for construction. Thank you for your time, and we hope to see more improvements and see the CIP funds put to good use.
Next is Susan Owens. Please play the video.
Good evening. My name is Susan Owens. I'm here to ask for something very simple. A school, specifically Clarksburg Elementary number 9. This is Clarksburg Elementary School. My son Ethan started in one of 2 kindergarten classes here in 2015. Now my third child, Abigail, is in kindergarten here in one of 6 classes. The building you see has space for 311 students and is filled to capacity. Here is the rest of the school. Located on the field next to Clarksburg Elementary, these portables house the 460 or so additional students that are assigned to this school, including my other daughter, Ivy, in 4th grade. The teachers and administrators call them the learning chateaus, or portable palaces, to make them seem a bit more glamorous. If all goes right, by winter break, this castle on the hill will also include a portable bathroom to help alleviate the inadequate bathrooms that result from 250% utilization. Not an overly nice bathroom, one that needs to have the sewage emptied every evening and be completely replaced every 30 days. I had to lobby MCPS to ask for a porta potty for my daughter and her classmates in Montgomery County in 2021, and we're grateful to be getting it. Our community hopes that when the area is prepared for the portable bathroom, we can also get a few more parking spaces. Because guess what else is built to meet the needs of 311 kids and their teachers? That's right, the parking lot. The situation is depressing, infuriating, and does not come close to the expectations we parents have for our children at Montgomery County Public Schools. Our teacher's lounge is a music room. Until the most recent portable was added, our vice principal's office was a desk in the hallway. Arrival and dismissal require coordination between every available staff member as they try to get 800 children down a narrow road without sidewalks. Several other schools within a 10-minute radius have empty space right now. Why has MCPS not done anything to fix the situation? I would really like to know. Your projection for the 2022-23 school year is 875 students. This is more than the biggest elementary schools you're building now. Where are you going to put them? How many more children will have to wear their warm coats and walk past 14 other portable classrooms to get to a temporary bathroom? How many more teachers will have their cars sideswiped by impatient parents when they have to park them on the side of Redgrave Place because the lot is full? For years, as we watched enrollment climb, we've been promised Clarksburg Elementary number 9 within the Cabin Branch development. This picture shows the school site. I pass it every day and think to myself, look, this is where my daughter should be, in a building with real bathrooms and adequate classrooms, and maybe even a full school event, something we can't even dream about right now. After several delays, ground will be broken for Clarksburg number 9 this February for an August 2023 opening. It must not be delayed. In the meantime, as we deal with a projected 280% utilization of our tiny little school site, I ask you to keep our children in your thoughts. Someday, once again, I hope that they will actually be able to go to school in a school.
Next is Jacqueline Randall. Please play the video.
Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Randall, and I'm here to provide testimony with regards to the Somerset Bethesda Elementary School and Westbrook boundary change recommendation. Before beginning, I'd like to say thank you to the Montgomery County Public School Board of Education for allowing the public to provide insight and perspective on this matter. So as a parent of a child at one of these schools that will be that could be impacted, I'd like to offer a couple points of for consideration. First, I believe that the numbers that are being used to drive this decision are flawed and outdated. This assessment that led the superintendent to make this recommendation came well before the pandemic, and since the pandemic, we have seen in various assessments and studies and analytics that there is a rapid decline in the number of children in Somerset, Westbrook, and Bethesda Elementary School due to children opting to to go to school from home or opting to enroll in private schools. So it's very critical that we ensure that the data that we're that we're using to drive this catastrophic and disruptive decision is accurate and reflects the current landscape of our schools to this day. Secondly, forcing families to move from one school to another in the middle of a global pandemic is extremely disruptive to our children's social and emotional health. There's so much anxiety, depression, fear, uncertainty going on right now in families across the nation, but specifically for our young children who have been experiencing the outcomes of this global pandemic. Our local elementary schools are a representation of stability and consistency during these times of uncertainty. And I'm greatly concerned as a parent of a child at one of these schools that moving my child in the middle of this time to a different school will just be disruptive to her ability to maintain her mental health in this time. So I ask that you consider this testimony, consider reassessing the data to ensure that you're making this decision based off of current data. I ask you to consider the thoughts and perspectives of child psychiatrists, of parents, of child psychologists, to weigh in how much good is this decision going to be making for the local community that you are trying to serve. How disruptive is this decision? I believe that it will be negatively disruptive, and I hope that you consider this testimony in your decision making. Thank you.
Next is Seth Mark Kamen. Please play the video.
Members of the school board, fellow parents, and community members. My name is Seth Kamen, and my family and I have lived in the Saybrook community of Gaithersburg for almost 10 years. I offer this testimony on behalf of myself, my husband, and several of our neighbors. Currently, Saybrook kids go to Gaithersburg elementary and middle schools. As you are aware, these schools are overcrowded, and Gaithersburg number 8 is intended to help alleviate this dilemma at the elementary level. When our daughter was born 4 years ago, my husband and I became advocates for better access to a new local school. I testified multiple times to the Gaithersburg City Council to have the school built at Kelly Park, which is only footsteps from our home. It is our hope that our daughter will attend Gaithersburg number 8 as a kindergartner next fall, which is what the current boundary study recommends. Many of my fellow Saybrook parents hope for the same thing. The study also suggests that our children go to either Forest Oak or Shady Grove Middle School instead of Gaithersburg Middle School. Our preference, because it is within our neighborhood and very walkable, is for Forest Oak. The walkability to both Gaithersburg number 8 and Forest Oak is good for the students, the environment, community culture, and school engagement. We are hopeful that a multi-school partnership within the same community can take advantage of and utilize the proximity of the two schools and the support of that community. It seems odd that there would ever be a question about where kids who live within walking distance of a school should go. There is, in my opinion, no logical reason for me to drive my daughter past any school to go to another one, which is what would happen if our neighborhood remained at Gaithersburg Elementary and/or went to Shady Grove Middle School or stayed at Gaithersburg Middle School. We look forward to being active members of the school community and hope that attending the local schools will enhance the informal discussions and friendships that will form with other parents and the school staff as we walk our kids to school each morning and pick them up each afternoon. As such, we ask the school board endorse the boundary study recommendations and allow Saybrook students to go to Gaithersburg number 8 and Forest Oak Middle School. Thank you very much.
Next is Carl Brian Swartz. Please play the video.
Dear members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Brian Swartz. I'm the father of 2 children at Somerset Elementary School. My family has lived in the Somerset School District for over 12 years, and we're very proud of our educational community. The last 2 years have been incredibly difficult for my family and kids, as they have for many others. But being part of a strong and supportive school community has made a huge difference, which is why I'm so disappointed and opposed to this plan, which would uproot my kids, as well as many other children, from a school that they know and love, especially at a time with such stress and difficulty already existing for them. I want to affirm the opposition already expressed by the Somerset Parent Teacher Association, which maintains and contests that this plan is flawed and misguided for several reasons. First, this plan is based on outdated and inaccurate data. In fact, recent data since the pandemic shows that Somerset is not over-enrolled, but in fact is at its lowest levels in nearly 5 years. Secondly, this plan does not seem to be based on the interests or desires of those most affected by the change. In fact, I've not spoken with a single parent in my neighborhood who supports this plan. Over the last several days, I've tried to speak with as many families as possible, and I've talked to over 25 families who share the same concerns for this plan, and I know there are many others. Finally, this plan seems to place an unnecessary burden on children and families who have gone through such emotional and social difficulty over the last 2 years. It's cruel and arbitrary to make a change like this at this time, especially based on such inaccurate data. I have made an effort to speak to numerous families in our neighborhood and community who share these concerns, especially about the social and emotional welfare of our children. Moreover, many of us believe that the biggest burden of this plan is being placed on the most disadvantaged families in our community. The students being moved are disproportionately students of color or live in multifamily housing areas where many families do not have cars and rely heavily on a school that is close to home and familiar to their children. Honestly, I'm shocked that the school district is even considering such a flawed, inequitable, and ill-timed proposal. I urge you to strongly oppose this proposal and delay any boundary change until we have better data and our students are mentally prepared for the challenges that such a big change will put upon them. Thank you for your time.
Next is Lou Morrisberger. Please.
Hello, my name is Lou Morrisberger, and I thank the board for the opportunity to speak tonight about the Bethesda Somerset Westbrook boundary study. I live in Chevy Chase Village on the very edge of the neighborhood designated by the study as Zone S3. This is the part of Chevy Chase Village that currently feeds into Somerset Elementary, just a half-mile walk from our home, but that is slated to move to Westbrook, which is a 2.5-mile drive. I speak tonight as a parent with 2 children who attended Somerset not long ago, and I speak in support of neighbors whose kids attend Somerset now, but who are concerned their children will be redirected to a more distant school based on the pending recommendation. I echo the concerns of parents from all 3 schools who ask whether the enrollment statistics in the boundary study are still valid and who question the timing of this disruption coming so soon after 2 very difficult years. They question how this recommendation squares with MCPS's own survey, in which an overwhelming majority, 70%, of families said geography should be the most important consideration for school boundaries. Geography meaning proximity. And they ask whether this decision should be made when the school board seat for the affected communities is vacant. But I also question the particulars of this study as they have been applied to Zone S3. Within Chevy Chase Village, Zone S3 consists of about 135 homes, and it represents about half, or 15, of the roughly 30 village families with kids attending Somerset. The bulk of Zone S3 lies within a half-mile of Somerset Elementary. This short, walkable distance wouldn't be served by school bus routes, except that Wisconsin Avenue lies between our neighborhood and Somerset. But for that busy thoroughfare being in the way, there'd be no bus options for our neighborhood. We'd be walkers, pure and simple, and Zone S3 wouldn't even be considered for this move. This is not, however, just an issue of walkability. Over the years, school capacity questions have caused Chevy Chase Village to feed into 3 elementary schools, and based on the pending recommendation, that will now become 4. In the case of village families that feed into Somerset, the already small group of 30 or so families will be further divided in 2, half staying at Somerset, half going to Westbrook. This further fragmentation reduces the role schools once played as a central part of our community. Finally, excluding S3 from this move would not cause continued overcrowding at Somerset. The boundary study anticipates that under option 1, Somerset will have excess capacity of 69 to 74 seats in the 4 years after it is fully implemented. Why take this group of 15 students and break them off from their larger community, sending them to a school 2.5 miles away when their current school a half mile away has excess capacity? This serves no purpose and it makes no sense. I encourage the school board to revisit this boundary study overall. Thank you.
Okay, we're up to the point of board questions. Before I start, I just wanted to make a comment. One of the ideas we heard tonight was for minimum attendance requirements at our community engagement meetings. I would have to say that that's a unique requirement and that I don't think that I personally could support that because we do have to finish our business at some point. And if we don't ever meet that number, no matter how hard we tried, and you did hear Mr. Adams say that they did try 14 meetings, we would still be going on and on. The other point I want to make is for Poolesville. I certainly understand your concern. You come every year about the wellness center. And what I would suggest is that you also lobby the county council about that because that's a joint partnership between the school system and HHS. So at this time, if you turn on your light, if you'd like to speak. Ms. Harris?
Yeah, I am. A couple questions about what we've heard about Burtonsville Elementary. I guess one is to address right now some of the issues we're hearing about 6 lunch periods and students who, long lines, don't have time to eat. Is this a school that's amenable to getting the students outdoors for some of the lunch seating capacity anyway?
We can certainly follow up to see if we can expand any outdoor eating options. I think we can also work with the principal to understand the number of lunch periods in the scheduling to see if there's more to it around recess or other aspects of it to see if we can help from a facility perspective in that, and also engage with our OTLS partners to explore options. And
I know this, both Greencastle and Burtonsville are on in the CIP for recommended additions to be completed in August 25. Do those, and I know there's still an ongoing conversation about the suggestion about the, is it Bryant Park site? I might have gotten that wrong. But the work at Burtonsville, would that take care of some of the traffic safety issues we're hearing about?
So yes, the feasibility study that was referenced, we did review this site from both expanding cafeteria as well as improving the circulation on site. But again, this is not a walking school, so predominantly it is a on-site circulation with the one-way in, one-way out type of configuration. But we did have options that address that, but certainly if this project is approved, we'll re-engage with the community and explore that to make sure that's still the right approach for this particular site.
We heard loud and clear the challenges at Clarksburg Elementary, especially the parking challenges for staff and the parking challenges that effectively prevent volunteers from being able to come to the school to assist with some of the instructional challenges or lunchroom monitoring, things that so many of our elementary schools are making use of. Is there, I mean, I know it's not really a CIP issue for us, but you're familiar with the site. Is there an option, an alternative that would permit families, volunteers to participate in the life of the school day with the current structure and parking and streets?
So we will explore some of those options. I would say this is a similar situation to what we experience many times in holding facilities. I would point out, as some of our schools are transitioning in these facilities, a school like Southlake will have close to 40 portables on site, and those are the type of approaches that we have been successful with in the past, is looking for partner sites, looking for other opportunities for people to be involved, looking at the staffing models to make sure we are accommodating those students, and certainly that is the same approach that we will certainly apply to Clarksburg Elementary School as well.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
Ms. Silvestri.
Just following up on that, is the idea of building a new school something that we're considering instead of the additions? And will the additions take care of the cafeteria overcrowding problems?
So the new school concept was actually an idea that was floated on a joint county agency, sort of task force approach, and it was more an option to explore from a walking perspective. Again, Burtonsville is not as you heard, is not a walking school. So looking, are there options? Following that brief discussion, there was some interest from the county executive to explore a variety of options, but I would say, the enrollment of both schools, in the 6th year is close to 1,400, and so certainly, when you look at Burtonsville and what we're proposing an addition that would build that out to 740. So a new school would also be 740, so we would still need an addition at Greencastle. So I think as we navigate this challenge, certainly one of the first obstacles is to make sure there's funding available for these projects. And then I do believe that we can continue those conversations with the county executive, county council to see if there's more advantageous option for the county as a whole and as the school district. I would say, as you heard, there is quite a bit of development. We're looking at the White Oak sector plan that will be impactful. We're looking at some of the smaller scale development in that Burtonsville area in conjunction with the planning department. So this will be an ongoing discussion, but I do believe the recommendation of an addition is certainly a good start here. And regardless of if a new school is ultimately decided for Burtonsville, we would still need capacity at Greencastle as well. So I think this is very prudent that we pursue this as an option at the moment.
Thank you. And finally, several folks tonight testified from the BCC cluster about the study using out-of-date data. And I know we clarified this in previous meetings, but for the purposes of tonight's audience, we are using up-to-date enrollment information, not the pre-pandemic numbers that maybe some folks saw previously.
Correct. So the boundary study actually occurred this past spring. So we actually used 2020, 2021 data to actually do the boundary study because that was the actual school year we were in. For the superintendent's recommendation, we actually reviewed both boundary studies in the latter part of September in order to capture using this September's enrollment numbers to make that recommendation. And so the September 20th enrollment information, which is the latest we had, was part of the superintendent's recommendation. And then when we presented to the board, it's actually this September 30th, the preliminary September 30th number. So we really can't get any currenter than those numbers. We did that review in order to capture as current as we could, keeping in mind the pandemic and the current situation that we were in. So even the boundary study process was using mid-pandemic numbers, not even pre-pandemic numbers, because it was the 2020-2021 school year.
Where can the public see those updated numbers if they wanted to look them up tonight?
So the superintendent's recommendation has the September 20th information, and the PowerPoint presentation that we presented to the Board of Education, which I believe is still on the website, under the board docs, has the September 30th information.
Just to be real direct, so which meeting date would they need to look up?
October 25th has the presentation, and actually I think it's the 25th, the 26th, and whenever we presented, but the 25th presentation has the September 30th information.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing Dr. Daka?
Oh, yes, just thank you for all the interesting ideas and the questions that people have brought forward. But I wanted to congratulate Judd Ashman, who was on, video, for being reelected mayor in Gaithersburg. And congratulations to Jim McNulty as the council member, and I hope that he won't be sorry. But anyhow, thank you all for being here tonight.
So on behalf of all of my board members, I want to thank everyone that came tonight. It's always helpful to us to hear from our community, and we appreciate your input. Thank you, and have a great evening.